Okay. I think we're live. I think. It doesn't matter how many times I actually do like streaming, like through YouTube. Like how many games have I streamed? Or how many streams have I done? Like a lot, probably. And I'm always like I'm always still hesitant that like I probably fucked something up. Like you guys can't hear me or something. You guys can't hear me, right? I think. I hope. Let's see. We are good. Okay, good. As long as you can hear me. Hello, Anna Lee. Oh, thank you, wrestling fan. Yeah, it was kind of weird because I don't even remember when I did my first like. I actually have to even look it up myself. Actually, let's see. Because yeah, I'm like going through my videos now. So after the Game of Thrones rewrites, or while I was doing them. Oh yeah, so I didn't really do a social issues video until the Seinfeld one was kind of like that. I guess it was kind of like it, but then it was the Euphoria video, Euphoria and the reasons why, and then the celebrity body transformations. It's funny, I actually didn't even mean to make that. I didn't mean to not make it. What's up, Book? Hello, Lux. Oh, thank you very much. Um, I didn't even mean to make that body transformation video. I woke up and saw the whole controversy with Kumail going on, and and I just was like, oh, this is fucking stupid. So I had to make a video about it. Um, so I was really surprised by that. I was like, oh shit, I'm like okay, this worked out well. So, but yeah, I was kind of glad too, wrestling fan, because I liked like obviously like it was more because I kind of got started with the Game of Thrones rewrites. I didn't really want to get stuck as a Game of Thrones YouTuber because I'm really never really felt that way. And even like when I started, I didn't think of it as that way. It was just a piece of media that I liked and wanted to talk about and write about. So, but yeah, um, thank you. How do I get as good as you? You don't, because I'm not even that good. No, but to kind of go off of wrestling fans, uh, uh, you know, his point. Something I get asked a lot is like, or I've had a couple people ask me is like, what do you, what do you, what's your advice for starting a channel? It's just do it. Because I didn't actually get the only reason I got anything was because of the Tyrion video got bumped up by the algorithm. It just kind of sucks that YouTube's like that in the sense that like there's no really rhyme or reason for it. Sometimes it doesn't matter how good of content you put out. It doesn't matter if it's original or if it's interesting. It just whether or not YouTube picks it up is just a coin toss. Um, no, more like a roulette wheel with the odds. Um, the the problem is that like people like want to like they try to like build a following. The problem is kind of to your point, wrestling fan. What they'll end up doing is they'll try to like start stuff and then they'll just kind of do the derivative stuff, the same old stuff that people see, um, or like that what they think that YouTube wants. But the problem is that by the time they actually get a sufficient following, or by the time like they start getting into it, um, that's what you're pigeonholed to. And then you want to move into, oh, this is actually what I wanted to do with the channel. And everyone's like, no, that's not this isn't your audience. Like, what are you doing? And yeah, you don't want to get to that point. Like if the YouTube channel like feels like your job, like if you set out to have it be a career, I feel like that's usually not a good idea because you're going to eventually end up trying to do what you think people want you to do as opposed to just doing what you want and then hoping people respond to it or that YouTube fucks with you. Um, Thank you, everyone, for the congrats. Does it alarm or confuse you how many reactionary racist comments your update posts have seen to garner? You strike me as a level-headed guy, but some of your fans seem a bit unsavory. Yeah, I've seen that too. Well, it's funny because the I posted one, and it was funny because it was a joke that me and funny enough, Dakota here in the chat, we had been posting about. We had joked about um very special episodes on like on TV shows where it's like, hey, the gang has a food fight. The gang like goes to the zoo. And then there's one where it's like the gang has to deal with like Islamophobia when the girl from Saudi Arabia has her locker defaced. And like, 'cause that's kind of like, if you ever like seen shows where like they're like really lighthearted, but then there's like a very special episode, and then all of a sudden like shit gets real, and it's like, whoa. And so I posted that thinking like, oh, okay, this would be funny. And it was weird because it was like, because then like a couple people, like most people, like understood what the joke was, and then there were like a couple people who were like, um, who were like, uh, they started talking about like Islam, like the morality of it, and was like, what are you doing? It was a joke about like children's TV shows. Like what are you talking about? Um, and then I saw a couple comments on the whatchamacallit. The I saw a couple comments on the Superman one when I posted because the day before that, some people probably didn't get the context. The day before the day before I saw that, I announced that the Force Diversity video was coming out. And to your point, someone asked the Force Diversity video. I have no idea when it's gonna come out. I have no idea. I haven't even started on it. I mean, actually, no, I did because I started on it back before I did the male dating video, and then that one ended up taking precedence. So I kind of have a good foothold on how I'm gonna structure it. I just need to look into it. So I'm not really sure when it's gonna come out. I have a couple other videos I'm gonna do. I need to get another episode of whatchamacallit out. Oh, nice tries in. I'm getting keen to those. I used to fall for those a lot. But yeah, to your point, Dope. Well, that's sort of like why like a lot of people mentioned to me, wow, you really engage with the audience a lot. You comment a lot, you respond to people. And part of that is, I think, part of your reason because you really don't really have control over how people are perceiving your content. It kind of goes back to the Seinfeld video when I was talking about how like even if you do make a joke that is not racist or like it's supposed to like point out like this absurdity of it, there is a chance that people will take it the wrong way or like think you're saying one thing when you're not or try to spin it in their way. And that's why I think I try to, whenever I see those, I'm kind of like, not to like just like to show people like, oh look, I'm not, but just more to be like, hey, like, I don't know if like you took that like the wrong way because maybe you just thought that's what I was saying, or maybe you're trying to spin this in here, but like this probably isn't the channel for you. Yeah, because I got that a lot on the I was wondering because the first day the male dating video came out, I lost I netted -8 subscribers. And I wonder if people were just like because they like were fans of like Alexander Grace, who I shit on the video, or like some of the other red pill dudes, all deservingly. And they were like, "No, we thought you were one of us." And I'm like, "No, I'm not into that anymore." But yeah, the Dope channel. It's something that that's part of the reason why I am pretty responding to comments to kind of keep tabs on that. Because I feel like if certain creators don't do that, especially if you get like a large following, if you kind of lose control over it, sometimes you can start to generate a certain audience that you really don't want. That's a lot more reactionary or a lot more um, a lot more vitriolic than you'd want. Like the forced diversity video, I think is going to be very level-headed. It's going to be very. I actually see both sides of the aisle, and I actually really dislike how both sides. And I actually played into this too during the donkey video, which is why I decided to make the video. Of like, are there a lot of people who complain about forced diversity that are like straight up racist? Like, yeah, of course there are. But I think there is something deeper. I think there is a deeper element to it where I don't really know if I don't really like the concept of forced diversity in terms of like how it's usually used. But I think there's an underlying thing that exists that is there that I think actually does warrant scrutiny. So I think, however, sometimes I think that a lot of people just articulate it horribly, or they don't really know how to articulate it. It's very difficult, and so they end up saying like really like kooky things or contradictory things. So that's sort of like why I wanted to make the forced diversity video, to be like, hey, look, it really isn't. It's a lot more complicated. The donkey video, Steven, the video game donkey. Steven, oh, thank you for the donation. I appreciate that. No, Kier, I don't. I just I don't think I. Dakota, I know you have plans for a video discussing ADHD representation media. Are there other social issues in film? Yeah, I think so. ADHD was one that I was really interested in just because I got diagnosed myself not too long ago. So that was sort of like one I really wanted to set. Also because I checked out online and even on YouTube, and there's really no discussion of it. Even the mental romanticization one, that had kind of been done to death. I did have one for autism, or like spectrum disorders in media. However, there is a lot of that. So I'm kind of debating it. I might shelve it just because it seems like there's a lot of people already covered that ground. However, I have not seen one at all on ADD, ADHD, and I think there's especially, and part of the reason because when I got diagnosed with it, I didn't realize. Part of the reason I think it took me so long is because even to realize it myself, was because it just took so. Because there's so many misunderstandings about it, there's so many misinformation about it or misunderstandings of it, that like when the woman, the therapist I was seeing, told me like, oh, this might be it. I'm like, what? Like, no. And then I went to see like another guy, and he's like, yeah, these are the symptoms. I'm like, oh, wow. I didn't know that was, because like ADD, you think of like a little kid like running around like oh, he can't pay attention. But like that's not really, especially in adults, that's not really that common. It's a lot more. It's a lot different. Let's see. I have a chance to stay home with family and work on my passion for like 6 to 9 country months, or I can move to Oregon and be on my own, but with way, way, way less free time. Huh? I mean, that really depends on up to you, ABCs. That sounds awesome to me. Stay home with the family and work on my passion for like 6 to 9 months? Why not? As long as it's not like strapping you financially. Like it's not like you're gonna come out of it and be like back to square one. But like if you have the chance to do that and you can like handle it financially, absolutely. I would do the shit out of that. Let's see. Happy birthday, Zin. Oh, I don't know who your friend Annie is. But yeah, I don't give unsolicited shoutouts, so I can't do that. How bad do you think woke culture is going to be? I don't really know what woke culture is. The problem, see, I kind of understand. Like this kind of goes back to the whole thing of forced diversity. There are like things of it, or like sort of like wokeness that I actually do, disagree with. Like, and I actually think I'm for the causes, but I actually think that the woke way, sometimes the wokeness, the way to go about it, actually ends up having sort of rebound effects in a way, like it kind of like bites us in the ass. So that's why I don't critique it because I disagree with the main causes. I disagree with it because I think the way that they're going about it actually is harming. And like it's like they're just like lining up like for Fox News to be like, hey, look at these fucking woke idiots, and it's like, yeah, I mean they are, like a lot of them are, and it just makes everyone who aligns with that position look completely stupid, and it makes it very easy to just push it away and just disregard it. Do you ever plan to review narratives of other video games? Maybe. Just maybe. I mean, like The Last of Us 2. That was more of it was more of just I was really passionate about it, and then when I played it, I was like, and I really needed to get my thoughts out on it. So it really wasn't necessarily like reviewing video games, but just sort of just because it was a particular video game and a particular story that I was really passionate about. So, and again, to kind of go back to another question, I don't really want to get, I wouldn't want to get pigeonholed and like, oh, he's the guy who does this. It kind of almost happened with rewrites, where I kind of was like, oh, let's just do rewriting, and it's like that'd be cool to do, and like I like doing that, but I don't want to like just do that one thing, because eventually you're gonna end up running into a case where like you kind of run out of media that you kind of really are excited about, and you end up just picking media that you need to do. And then I think at that point it starts to, if you ever feel like you need to do a video, like if you ever need to do a video where if you ever feel like you need to do a video where you need to make it but you don't really want to, I think you're probably on a wrong track. You always want to be like, oh, this is like something I want to talk about. It probably isn't good for like the algorithm or like branding, but like, who cares? Have you seen Bojack Horseman? I haven't. My roommate Matt, he actually watched it, and my old friend Brian, they watched it. And I've heard excellent things about it in terms of mental illness and sort of it kind of does a lot of things right that apparently other shows don't do right. So I'm interested in that. So I might actually get around to watching it. It's just so hard nowadays with shows, just because, especially if a show isn't finished, I'm very hesitant. I'm very hesitant about like. I'm very hesitant about committing the time and like brain energy to it, just because a certain show didn't end too well, and that was very disappointing. So now I kind of have like trauma, like residual trauma from it, where I'm like I almost have like trust issues with television shows, where like, oh shit, like, oh, this for the first 3 seasons are great, and then season 4 and 5 just fucking destroy it, and I'm just like, I can't do it anymore. Yeah, no, Chaotic Owl. The finale's still coming. I just got caught up with other projects, and because I wanted to get those out. Also, I knew it was gonna take a long time, so I didn't want to be just like on a hiatus for just like God knows how long. But also, in addition to that, I was just burned out from Game of Thrones. Just because I was like talking about it. Even by the time I got to like halfway through the rewrite series, I think there was a part of me that was like I still wanted to finish the rewrite series, but in terms of discussing like Game of Thrones, the show, I was burned out on it. Just because it was just like, damn, it seemed like everyone just wanted to like forget it existed in a way, like a collective trauma. But no, it's still on the way. I just wanted to kind of like build some other projects and get them done, because otherwise I think I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have just sort of like stuck with that. Yeah. ignorant question on my part, but if you have ADHD, how did you become so productive? So ADD, ADHD, ADD, it's very. I've heard it's very similar to. I'm still learning about it myself, but very similar to. Not. I don't want to say similar, but there is an element that's similar to sort of like spectrum disorders where it's very difficult to concentrate on other things that like you don't have that much interest in. Like it makes it very hard, but when it comes to things you're very passionate about, like when you have like very strong interest in, you can almost get like tunnel vision. So for me, like I wouldn't be able to write at all during the day when I'm trying to juggle other tasks because I couldn't do it. But then on Saturday when I had the day off, I would just write from like 10 a.m. to like 7 p.m. and I could do it just because once I was locked in writing, I could do it. However, sometimes I would forget to eat or drink, and I would have to like kind of like my girlfriend was like, "You have to take breaks," and I'm like, "I know." Um, but yeah, that can happen. But that's to answer your question. There's a certain element to it where it's like there's like a hyper focus on it. Um, yeah. Oh, I think I skipped a few. Thank you, Matt Mikulik, for the 50 for the congrats on the 50K. I'm gonna mention you in my next Force Diversity video, so get ready for that. That'll be fun. In the Discord, we kind of got into how Hollywood forced diversity kind of leads to them erasing the actual history of women and people of color. Yeah, what really pisses me off is like I think I posted about it on Twitter. They were having a black woman play Queen Anne or something, or like one of the Boleyn. I don't know. Like it was something like that. It was like a BBC show, and it's like I see. I don't have a problem. I don't care if like they cast a black woman as as a historically white character. Like it's not like destroying my heritage or like what the shit people say. What pisses me off about it, and this is sort of like where I get pissed off about it, not for that reason, not because oh because it's like destroying heritage. It's the fact that it kind of the same thing with like the female Ghostbusters. It feels more like you didn't want to put the effort in of actually writing a new franchise or actual like well thought out like a well thought out concept for these female characters. You just couldn't think of anything, so you're like, hey, let's just take these actresses, take this established franchise that we know people love, and just like mash them together, even if it doesn't really work, or even if there's no inspiration or passion behind it, or even really that decent of a good idea. Let's just put them together and just hope, and then yay that we did it. And it's like no, especially if you're gonna like suck your own dick about it. If you're gonna be like, hey, this is an important step, we're really for diversity and female roles. It's like okay, then like actually, okay, but put in the effort. You know, it's like the same thing with Disney. It's like oh, we're really dedicated to diversity and inclusion. It's like well, I mean. It seems like every time you've tried that, you've done like the bare minimum, where like you like we'll throw a lesbian kiss in there. We'll make one of the characters kind of gay, but he's not really gay. He'll dance with a dude because that just means he's gay. Even though what the hell does that? Plenty of dudes dance with dudes. Why is that gay? But and again, it's like if you just want to have that in there, like there's nothing wrong with that. But when like a major corporation, and this is sort of like what the sort of like main thesis, spoiler alert, of the forced diversity video of it is when a major corporation like sucks its own dick about it, like when they like pat themselves in the back and there's like all these press releases of like diversity and inclusion, and then they especially like when it comes to like the people they're talking about, like when you talk to like when you think of gay kids or like black kids or you know like oh finally we're gonna get representation, it's finally time, we're gonna see ourselves, and then they just do the bare minimum. So basically they got all the benefit of like people's support over like, hey, you're being diverse, good, let's see it, and then they do the bare minimum, and it's just I like that's so disgusting to me. I'd almost rather them just not even do it. Like, it's just like if you're gonna try to use that for sales, like, and I understand you're like a billion-dollar corporation. I understand that's like in your nature, but if you're gonna do it with effort, you know. Like, you know, Star Wars. Hey, it's all about, you know, female empowerment. and diversity and inclusion, which is why all three directors of the movies are all going to be white dudes who we've worked, or who were just like work with in the past. And again, I don't necessarily have a problem with who they pick, but if you're gonna like suck your own dick so much about it, about diversity and inclusion, and then you don't deliver, it's like. But yes, someone. Oh, there's another question. Oh, what do you think of Think Before You Sleep? Just another standard reactionary red pill bullshit loser, dude. I've seen all those, dude. Like Think Before You Sleep, all the red pill dudes. Undead Chronic. He actually commented on my dating video without even watching it, and he was like, what did he say? He was like, "Oh, another video that doesn't understand sexual selection." Also, every time I hear that, like I hear people like when they're talking about like dudes like people fucking, they say like sexual selection, and it's just like so cringy. It's like when guys like, do you know, like I'm sure you like, you know, like red pill guys, when they don't actually say women or chicks, they say females. That's just an immediate red flag for me. Like when guys only refer to women as females or something like that, I don't know what it is, but that's weird. That's a very like red pill esque thing. Like they're like talking about like women as if like they're a species. Like, oh, the female species. It's like big red flag. But yeah, Think Before You Sleep shit. He like Think Before You Sleep is like, he knows his audience. He knows who's watching his videos. He knows why, and he's making a killing off of it. Good for him in that respect, but I have no respect for it. That dope channel, yeah. You know, that's what's kind of hard too. I had to tap out during the video because something I'm still going through. It's something that, you know, can be very triggering. A lot of people don't really don't really get that. You know, it can be, if you're like a dude who's like really down on your luck. Oh my god, I think I felt this way. Like it can be bad. Like I think there were times before I kind of got into that when I was like really down on myself about my dating life. I couldn't even watch movies, like romance movie. I couldn't watch movies where like there was like a romance because it triggered me. Like that's how and like just to say like that's how bad it can get. That's how like that's how much this can like actually affect guys and like actually fuck their lives up. And just like just destroy their self confidence. And so like yeah, like it's no wonder even if they know like the whole pickup artist red hill stuff, or not really red pill, but like more like pickup artist stuff. Even if they know it's not good, even if they know it's toxic, they're so desperate. They're just like I don't care. I just need to do this. I need to get this out of my system. Yeah, well, that was the thing book. It was like the whole Battlefield 5 thing. It's like, hey, let's put this cyborg woman, in the game. And what sucks is because I know that there were people who were complaining about it because they were like, women didn't even exist during World War II, or like, you know, they were just idiots. But I posted in the Discord apparently the story of like a female Russian sniper unit. And one of the women like has like 309 confirmed kills. Like I think one of the most, especially I think the most for a woman, but I think even like one of the top, like up there is a sniper. And I'm like, dude, make a movie about her. Shit, dude, you have the movie right there. Chick like is like 309 confirmed kills during World War II. Like, shit, man, or an entire like female sniper unit. That's a movie right there. Use that. Don't just make up like, oh, there's the cyborg. It's like, what? Or like with the hook arm or whatever it was. But that's the thing. It's like that's what's part of it. It's like they say they're for diversity and inclusion, but when they put in the minimal effort, it's like that's what bugs me. However, the problem is that there are some people who just you get roped in with people who just don't like seeing women or black people on like the screen, and that's what sucks. Is that there is an actual like, I think there is actually something to be critiqued there, an actual concern, but because there's so many idiots who like they either are just straight up like just racist or sexist, or they're so bad at articulating themselves that they just sound like racist and sexist. it's like, okay, well, now I don't even want to broach the subject because I'm going to get roped in with these idiots no matter what. So, um, yeah, dead like you. As someone on the spectrum, there are a lot of garbage portrayals of autism. That's sort of the thing. There were already a lot of videos that covered it. So the whole thing with ADD is I kind of wanted to, that seemed like it hasn't been talked about. Um, but I might do the video on autism, but I might reconsider. It seems like there's always that ground's been covered. Um, oh yeah, that was that Dakota. That was it. The black woman to play Anne Boleyn. Yeah, it was stupid. I was like, what are you doing? Why? And then what's gonna happen in the show? Or like, are people gonna like? Because that was the same thing with Bridgerton. Like my girlfriend was watching it, and I come in, and like it's like high society, and like some of them are black, and and I'm like, so is this okay? They're like, what? She's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, like the white chick is like dating the black dude. Isn't this like a time when like shit was like really racist? And it's like, then apparently like the show doesn't acknowledge race at all, which is like I guess I kind of see what like they're doing. Like in Hamilton, how they had actors of color play George Washington, like the founding fathers and shit. But there's like a certain ironic framing of that's independent to the stage show. It's ironic because of what they're trying to do, and the medium of theater, musical theater, sort of like it allows that. Whereas in this show, it just seems like there's like it's Bridgerton, but in like there's like the high Gossip Girl and like all that shit, like the drama and the romance, but like there's no racial aspect to it, which is kind of weird. I don't know. It seemed like it. Again, I kind of understand what they're doing, but at the same time, it's like, is it at what point does it become sort of like reductive of history? I don't know. Yeah, dope. Character is irritating and obnoxious. ADHD. It's like that's not what that means at all. Hey Mac, what do you think of Mountie? Oh, he's not here, is he? I thought I blocked him, but hopefully I did. Steven, thank you again for the donation. Do you still plan on doing this Star Wars? Yeah, I think so. I think that the moment's kind of passed for it, but I still kind of want to get in there because I think, especially with The Last Jedi, I think that there's so many really interesting things about it. I think there are a lot of really strong learning opportunities in the sense of I can kind of see what Ryan was trying to do, but it just didn't pan out. Like I tell people a lot, I don't think Last Jedi is a bad movie, but I hate it. And the reason is not because I think it's bad, but it's like if you like watch a really, really awesome movie and the ending blows, it's kind of like that. It's like, oh fuck, you were so close to act like this was gonna be great, and you fucked it up. Whereas with Last Jedi, it seemed like they had a real like the whole thing with Luke, the whole thing with like maybe like because that's kind of actually we were talking about the prequels and how there's actually an element of like in the original trilogy, the Jedi are kind of framed as like these like godly like super morally righteous beings. The prequels kind of show that like, hey, actually maybe they're just maybe their ways aren't like maybe they're better than like like Palpatine and shit, but like maybe they actually have flaws themselves. Maybe their rigid ways actually in part are sort of like adding to a problem, and I thought that was really interesting. The fact that like you can have these like heroes, but maybe their rigid ways and their old school ways actually are not really toxic, I guess, but they're sort of like they're lacking self-reflection themselves. And I thought that was actually really interesting. And I could actually see that happen with like I think that they should have worked that angle into Luke. Maybe like make that about him. Like maybe Luke started to sort of like question the Jedi ways and maybe like see that maybe it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. Maybe there were dark truths that he had to learn. Maybe make him doubt. And people always like get on that like, oh, the theme. It's like, yeah, like the theme is great. It's really cool. It's really interesting. the execution blows. It was terrible. It was so stupid. Just the way it all unfolded with like the Kyle had to wake up with, oh shit, and then Luke isn't able to say, I don't know. It's just dumb. Oh, it was so forced. Have you seen Lovecraft Country? No, but Gamby Man, who is a guy I follow on Twitter, he talks about it a lot. I haven't really heard good things though. Thank you for your advice on the passion thing. You're welcome. If you watch, have you watched and enjoyed any Marvel shows? No. It kind of the same thing with Game of Thrones. After Endgame, I was completely burned out on Marvel. Like now they're trying to do all this other stuff, and it was like it's so weird too because like they framed Thanos as like such like in his army is like, oh, this is the end game, this is it, this is the biggest conflict, and it kind of ends in a way that kind of says now everything is kind of like there'll still be shit to do, but like for the most part it's over. And yet but now they have to like create more conflict, and it's like how are they gonna like I'm wondering like so we're in phase 4. How is like phase like 5 or 6 gonna end? Like, is there gonna be an even bigger threat than Thanos? It's like, are they gonna bring him back? I swear to God, if they bring back, you know who? Is it? I feel like it's not spoiling. If they bring Tony back, I'm just gonna lose it. I feel like I didn't want to spoil, but I'm like, I feel like everyone knows that's just something you can talk about now. Have you seen Invincible? No, I've heard about it though. People have said it's good. I might look into it. What do you think of Snyder's work on the DCU and all the buzz around his Justice League? Yeah, I want to see him continue his vision. Like I wouldn't say that it's all. I wouldn't say I'm a big fan. Snyder's a good example of someone who I think like he had really interesting ideas, especially Batman vs Superman. A lot of people shit on him for that, and the movie isn't very good. It has a lot of structural issues, a lot of issues, writing issues. But what I found really interesting was his more sort of like, I've always spoken about how in Spider-Man 2, what I loved so much about that movie, more than any other movie, was that it was far more of a, I kind of described Spider-Man 2, it's not a Spider-Man movie, it's a Peter Parker movie. I know that kind of sounds like what? But the point I'm making is that like the whole main conflict of Spider-Man 2 it wasn't about Spider-Man facing a bad guy. It was more about Peter saying like, hey, that whole thing about great power, great responsibility. Well, what if I didn't ask for this power? What if I don't want that responsibility? What if it's starting to fuck up my life? And that was really interesting to see a selfless hero actually act very selfishly in a very selfish manner, and not selfish in a bad I don't think selfish always has like a negative connotation to it, but I think Peter's concerns in Spider-Man 2 were completely valid. Like, no, you're a young kid, you didn't ask for this, you didn't ask for this to happen, and now you can't enjoy your life ever. Like, that's not fair. It's yes, your decision to give up is selfish, but not in the sense that it's understandable. It's not a bad thing. Selfish usually comes with like a very negative connotation. I don't really think that's always the true. Matt Micklick, what does that have to do with me? Oh, you'll see. So for Batman and Superman, what I really found interesting was how with Batman, I loved his portrayal of like more as like a zealot. Because it kind of goes back to the whole like my Watchmen video of like Batman's kind of nuts. He's a little kooky. And a lot of movies or even comics before that didn't really sort of like lean in on that. Of like Batman's kind of nuts, isn't he? Yeah, he is a little bit. Like order. I am justice. It's like you're a little disturbed, like you're a little. But of course he's like played as like this like that was like one of my big gripes with like the Nolan trilogy. Like it was fantastic, but the fact that like Batman sort of and Bruce are sort of like portrayed as this more one-dimensional, like morally righteous figure, which is his, which is him in the comics, of course, for a large part. But what I found so interesting was that, like, you know, a dude like jumps around a bat suit for 20 years and sees like the worst the city has to offer, and this is what's going to happen to him. He's going to become paranoid. He's going to become very a zealot in his ways. So I thought that was interesting. Even Superman, the whole thing of like again, I'm not a big fan of how it was executed, but I think that having Superman kill in Man of Steel was fantastic. Like, that was awesome. That was fantastic. Like, him having to learn that, like, hey, and again, it's the execution I don't think was very good, but like, hey, the lesson of, hey, if you're gonna have to break this rule. You can't do this. You can't be this like, hey, I want to protect the Earth. I want to save everybody, and still hold true to that oath. And it was really interesting to see his struggle with like learning, where is that line? Where is the line of where I can, how can I, when is it okay to break that rule? Obviously, he can't go like nuts. He could kill the entire world in the blink of an eye. But it almost sort of like, if I do this, if I start to, go this route, that say it's like, oh, it's okay to kill here. What about here, and then here, and then here, and then like, it's almost as if like I would love to see Superman almost like question his own judgment, like be afraid of his own judgment. And obviously in BVS, he kind of started to realize, maybe like these aren't my people. Like, maybe like he started to kind of like the Dr. Manhattan. I actually think Snyder pulled a lot from his time when he worked on Watchmen. And he sort of like, he wants to defend Earth, but he's sort of becoming detached from Earthlings. He's seen as a god. He's seen as someone who will either be like a god and savior or a monster, depending on the circumstances. And he's trying to grapple with, he has to grapple with like, how do I find a balance of that? But yeah, I really just want to see Snyder's end to it. I want him to finish everything. I want to see, with like Nightmare, how that all ends up with Lois and all that crap. I really, and Darkseid, like even if I don't actually like really enjoy it or like it, I just want to see the whole product. I think it's kind of silly to kind of just cut off the legs now. Like, I really think they should let him do it. Like, you've come this far. Like, you have the fan base. Even if he doesn't make the most quality movies, whatever. I want to see it. Oh, the Batwoman series on CW. Oh, jeez. What do you think about Dexter? Do you think it's gonna be good enough? You mean Dexter, the serial killer show? Well, that's over. I would, if I ever like recommended Dexter to someone, I would just pretend anything beyond season 4 exists. If Dexter ended on season 4 with that ending, the season finale of season 4, if that was the series finale, it would be top 10 shows of all time. No question about it. The first 4 seasons of Dexter themselves, and this kind of goes back to like a great movie and the ending sucks. The first 4 seasons of Dexter are a masterpiece. Probably, if I were just going by like the first 4 seasons of Dexter, if I was the show, top 10, top 5 shows maybe, because of just how everything kind of came full circle. Everything else after it was shit. I mean, it wasn't shit, but it just was unnecessary, and then eventually became shit. Which is the danger when you have a successful show. The bigwigs want you to keep going, like, we need more of this, and it's like, that's not what. We're at the peak. We don't want to keep going because the story doesn't need any more, and then you end up fucking yourself over. Oh, sorry, I got pulled back. Will, may come back to this, but congrats, dude, getting recognition. Thank you very much, Will. I appreciate that. Sexual selection, yeah, it's what like red pill dudes call like getting laid. It's fucking weird. Like they talk about. That's what's so weird about like red pill stuff, is they're like, yeah, we're the alpha males. It's like, you're talking about like getting laid as if it's like you're in an anthropology class. It's like, stop it. It's weird. It's cringy. Stop. Or like calling like women females. Stop. That's fucking weird. That's probably part of the reason why you're having trouble with women is because like you see them as like they're alien, or like an alien species. And I'm not like downplaying. Like I understand that can be very hard when you're first starting out. They can be very intimidating. But the goal is to break that, to get more comfortable, to just see women as people. Like that's the whole thing, is to break that illusion of, oh, they're like these these beings that I have to put on the pedestal. It's like, no, you have to get to the point where you talk to men and women the same, or you feel like you feel sort of like equally as comfortable around everyone, not just women you're attracted to or whatever. But I actually think red pill, ironically, actually ends up exacerbating a lot of that bad stuff. So even the good stuff that does help with, which I think that there is, I've admitted, there is a lot of red pill rhetoric that I actually think can be helpful for guys. It actually exacerbates the negative qualities as well, which actually fucks guys over down the line. So that's sort of my opinion on red pill. Thank you, Lacry. Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. The GOT finale rewrite, it'll be around. It'll be coming. So, Dead Like You. So what you said about getting roped in with racists and idiots who cannot communicate and appear racist when trying to critique stuff like the modern Ghostbusters, have you found a way to combat or work around this? It just comes with articulation. You just need to be... Does it sound really weird to be like, hey, I'm not saying this, I'm not saying this? I think part of the skill of when you're talking about those sort of topics, and this is what I tried to... This is why the dating script took so long, was because if you're going to talk about these topics, you need to be 100% certain that what you're trying to say is coming across. Like, so for example, there was actually a part in the dating video where people sort of thought that I was, or it was only a couple comments, but they said something along the lines of, it sounded like you were defending negging during the section where I discussed negging, which, you know, and looking back on it, I'm like, oh yeah, see, I probably should have been more careful. I'm not like really, negging is hard because, like, again, I think like when put into practice, negging can be non-distinguishable from just like playful teasing. But it's the intent that really matters. It's the intent of like, hey, the point of negging or like just playful teasing is to, like, you know, if you just meet someone, you know, with your friends, like you fuck around, like you make jokes. That's kind of how you want to establish a rapport with someone, whether it's a guy or girl or someone. Like, you know, playful teasing is great because it kind of makes you guys feel like, oh, okay, we're making fun of each other. We're kind of like talking like old friends. We're talking like we're close. We're close. However, but the question is, like, where does that cross into sort of like a manipulation technique? And the problem is that, like, it's so difficult to like draw that line. Like, obviously, like, hey, insult a girl, but say she has a fat ass, so you could, you know, make her feel bad and you know, she'll fuck you. It's like that. Okay, that's clearly manipulation. But then it's, especially when you're trying to teach guys skills, like for a lot of people, flirting kind of, especially if they've like had a lot of experience with it, they don't really do things consciously. Like flirting just kind of comes naturally. But when you're trying to teach guys, you know, give them tips on how to do it, you have to be very, very, very careful because and this is actually what I think the big problem in pickup artistry is that sometimes the advice, here's a perfect example. When, you know, Bill Burr recently did like a stand-up special of, you know, when no really doesn't mean no. Like where he was saying like, oh, well, the girl said no. It's like, okay, well, did she say like, no, get away from me? Or did she say like, stop, you're so bad. No, I would not, you know, the point he was making is that like, just the words themselves in conjunction don't really, it really depends on the larger context. You know, in terms of body language and stuff like that, and like if it's playful or like, you know, teasing, that's very difficult to articulate. And sometimes and that's sort of like why the big thing about the video is like, you really need to raise your social calibration, because what ends up happening So when a pickup artist guy says, "Hey, no doesn't always mean no," what I should try to say, not all of them do. Some of them are just fucking idiot, like psychos. Other ones, what they mean is like, it could be like a shit test. It could be like, she's just teasing you or just like playing around. But the thing is that the guy who's saying it probably has a decent amount of social calibration. So when he's in that scenario, he can kind of tell, like, oh, okay, is she just playing around? Is she like, smiling and laughing and like touching me while she says it? Or is she like actually standoffish, like get the fuck away from me? The problem is that when you give that advice to guys who are not socially calibrated, they go out into like, a bar or club and they go up to a girl and a girl expresses clear disinterest, like, hey, like, no, I'm good. However, some of these guys here, oh, but those guys said that no doesn't. I should keep going and push harder, um, and that can be and that can be that leads to horrible outcomes. Horrible outcomes. So it's very difficult to your question. It's the biggest key is keeping. Sorry, Dead Like You. The biggest key is, and this goes back to the when you're critiquing forced diversity, you have to be very, 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 very articulate. You have to be extremely clear in what you're talking about. You need to comb your script 10 times over. Because again, there are so many things that like people who complain about forced diversity say, where I'm like, you understand that like what you're saying right now is, I know you don't mean to sound like this, but what you're saying right now just comes off as like you're a racist nut or like a sexist nut. But again, it's not, and like some of them are based on like other things they say in conjunction with that. But there are a lot of people who speak about forced diversity where I know, like, giving them good faith and like hearing them out, I'm like, I try to like lead, like there have been times when I try to lead them to the conclusion, like I see what you're saying, but like what you mean is this, right? And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, yeah, okay. But if you're gonna go out there on like a big like media platform or Twitter or stuff like that, you need to be super careful about this because it's going to end up you're gonna end up either like sounding like a racist, pushing bad ideas, not on purpose, just sort of like coincidentally, or you're gonna start to generate an audience that actually agrees with you, but for the wrong reasons. Um, and that is a very difficult balance to strike. But yeah, to your question, that's what it is. It's just you just have to be super, super clear about what you're talking about at all times. Otherwise, you risk um, some pretty bad outcomes. Yeah, Dead Like You, because I'm a bit at a loss. I can support the cause, just not every method. Exactly. And how do you So the question is like, how do we differentiate ourselves from those? How do we start our own cause, almost like separate from that, like almost like a subset of the cause, like sort of like healthy red pill in a way. Hey, I actually think that there are aspects of red pill that are good, that actually can help guys, but I need to be super clear that I am completely separating it from all the shit you think of when you hear red pill. That's sort of the key. Adrian, you should watch Generation Kill. Thank you for the donation. I actually have been meaning to get back on that because I remember I tried to watch it like way back when, but I think I was younger and I wasn't really into it. But it looks fucking awesome, so I really want to watch it. Will you watch House of the Dragon show? What do you think of the cast? I know Matt Smith is in it. I know Olivia Cook is in it, and some other people. I haven't really looked at the full cast. Again, I'm kind of not super interested in it. I might do reaction videos to it. Like, it's like just to kind of like keep content just sort of like in the meantime, because I'll probably want to watch it. So what I'll do is I'll watch it, maybe record it, and then like record my reactions to it, and then at the end I'll like do a little summary of what I think. I'm not really. I'll experiment with it. I was thinking about doing that because I kind of want to watch it, but also no. Like I wouldn't want to watch it alone. But I think like I think if I do it in a sense of like, hey, this will be for the channel. This will be, we can talk it over, all of us. Then maybe that'll be, and maybe see if they're trying to like, do something different than the show did. Then it would kind of like motivate me to actually do it. Let's see. Apparently, going to focus more on magic. Yeah, makes sense. Um, but that seal is already broken, so might as well. Well, yeah, that was the whole thing. Abidjan Zero. It's like there's so many people who like shit on Rey, like oh, it's a female. Like the issues with Rey have nothing to do with the fact that she's played by a woman. Like literally, there are so many issues with Rey as a character, but they're all writing based. Like I don't know, Daisy. Like is she a good actress? I don't know. Like again, like I don't think she was written very well, so it's kind of difficult to gauge it because it's like um I, like everyone says, oh, she's wooden in the movie. It's like, well, you kind of wrote a wooden character. Like it has nothing to do with her. You give someone a shit role, and like most if there's really no substance to the role, um, then how can you expect an actor or actress to give you something good out of the performance? Yeah, with Rey, she could have been a great character. I really liked what they were setting up of like she kind of like in Force Awakens, like it was like I have to accept the fact my parents are never coming back. But then in Last Jedi, it was like, oh, my parents were nobody, and it's like it's kind of weird because like that never was a thing for her. At no point did it seem like she cared who her parents were, like if they were like special or something. All she cared about was them coming back. What would have been really cool is if in Force Awakens, when she started to realize she had Force powers, she started to convince herself, oh, my mother and father must have been Jedi's. They must have been on a secret mission. That's why they left. And like she's trying to like justify it, to use it to convince herself that like, oh, that's why my parents are gone, because they're Jedi and they had to leave. Um, that would, and then like, but then of course in Last Jedi that gets shattered. They were nobody. They're not coming back, and that could have actually been a great moment, but there was no connective tissue between the two. There was no connective tissue between her accepting that her parents were not coming back and accepting that they were nobody. Like those are like those two don't mesh up. There was no connective tissue there. Had they put that in, it could have been fucking awesome. But and that moment where she says they're nobody, it would have been great because it would have been a 1-2 punch. It would have been they were nobody in the sense of like they weren't Jedi, and that's her kind of coming to the realization like they're never coming back. They abandoned me. They don't love me. They left me to die. Like that would have been, and it actually would have been really cool because that would have been, I think, like had it been executed properly, when Kylo like holds his hand out like come with me, like we were like, oh shit. Like I never felt like she was going to go with him in Last Jedi. It was weird. Like they made it seem like, oh, tempting the dark side. Like you didn't build this up. Like with Luke in Jedi in 6, he like they really built up Luke kind of going, even in Empire. We started to see Luke kind of like he's starting to kind of like go a little bit nuts. He's starting to let his anger, um he's starting to let the anger sort of like take him over, and then that sort of sets up, that sort of like establishes going into Return of the Jedi when we're actually like, oh shit, is Luke actually going to like let Palpatine in and like let him take him over? I never had that feeling with Rey. I never like, oh, maybe she'll go evil. Like, no, I never, because you didn't set it up. At no point did we see like this dark side of Rey, where and again, it's because Ryan put the Return of the, like if we compare the sequel trilogy to the original trilogy, Ryan took the Return of the Jedi moment where Luke is tempted and put it in Empire. Like think of that. Think of like the Palpatine scene where like he like tries to corrupt Luke happened in Empire. It wouldn't make any sense because at that point we hadn't seen Luke start to kind of like really get taken in. But after losing Han, after facing off against Vader and finding out that everything he's known was a lie, then this sets up what happens in Jedi. It was just everything was there. It was just a mess of pacing and all that shit, which unfortunately makes it that much more disappointing. Because like, oh fuck, if you would just kind of like done a few more drafts or like shuffled things around, this actually could have been great. But let's see what else we got. I messed up. Oh crap. What up, broken mug? Make sure Mountie doesn't come in. I don't like that kid. Let's see. Goku Mohanty, I have a question about the video essay. How are you so knowledgeable on the about the video essay on you did with steroids? How are you so knowledgeable on the subject? Do you have a background in athletics or fitness? I ran track and shit in high school, but mainly I got into like bodybuilding and weightlifting. Probably like 5 or 6 years ago. Like more bodybuilding. Like I'd like watch Athlete X and Alan Thrall, Omar Isaf, all the guys Meg Squats, all the people I commented in the video. Watched a lot of that stuff. Vegan Gains, Philion. I got really into fitness YouTube. So I just kind of absorbed that. I don't really think I said in the video there wasn't really any like advanced knowledge. Like there are some other guys who like I think more plates, more dates. Like he knows like everything about like the actual like compound steroids. He knows all that stuff. The industry, sponsorships, all that crap. I'm more of sort of like a noob when it comes to that. Even though it sounded like in the video I knew like a lot. Most of my knowledge on it sort of like just from absorbing other things. But yeah, I still lift now, but like not really like that much. I go like once or twice a week. I do like pretty heavy, big workouts. I don't really bother with like bodybuilding. Like, the peak of your bicep. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, again, especially like so many guys try to do that like because they like want to get girls. I'm like, dude, girls do not give a shit about the peak of your biceps. Like, holy shit. Let's see. Dexter is getting a season 9. Oh, fuck. Let it die. Shit. Thank you, Asin. Hello, Sophistic. Nope, you were on time to ask a question. I'm kind of like, you may have already asked it. I'm kind of like going back and seeing them, so I don't really know how people do like Q&A. Like I think like what Q&A is supposed to do is like you do super chats and like you answer those questions or like you pick them before time, but like I don't know. I'm just hanging with you guys. If you can't tell, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Thank you all for your congratulations. What books are behind you? Watchmen, A Tale of Two Cities, Sid Field's screenplay, Touching from a Distance, which is Ian Curtis's widow's memoir, which is I talk about Ian. He was the lead singer of Joy Division. He hung himself the day before they were about to go on their first American tour. He's only 23. He suffered from epilepsy, and that really affected his sort of mental state, and with just general depression and stuff like that. That's a good book. And then a couple, Lost Cat and What I Did by Jason. He's like a storyboard artist or like an animated artist. Look him up. He's just called Jason. Check him out on Amazon. There's some really cool shit there. Let's see. Thank you everyone for your congratulations. Is there something like gay incels out there? Is it strictly linked to misogyny? Like gay incels? I'm sure that there are cases where that is the case. My experience with it right now in like sort of like the gay community is that it's a lot more. It's actually kind of like the opposite, where it's actually kind of hard to find, like, cause it we've talked about this more in nuance in the Discord. Like a lot of people say like, well, it does seem that like promiscuity is more frequent in like the gay community. It's like, well, there's actually a lot of reasons for that. It really, like, a lot of people just sort of like jump to like, oh, well, gay people are. It's kind of like it's sort of like the same fallacy when people are like, oh, if you're bi, you must be like a fucking pervert, and like that makes no sense. Um, yeah, it's like, oh, well, there's, you like men and women. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't say anything about how many people you sleep with. I think that there's a certain like conflict in the gay community between like, hey, we want to show that we're proud and be open about our sexuality and not be ashamed of it or be afraid anymore, because even today people are still like hating on us. But at what point, what happens if we start alienating? What if that starts to become like a prerequisite to the community? What if there are like gay guys who like kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable with like the over sexualization of, say, like the Pride Parade, or like certain like we used to go to Boys Town here in Chicago. Well, yeah, we still do, but COVID and everything, we haven't gone in a while. But we always go to the clubs and they're a blast. But they are, there's like like gay shops, and there's like a lot of the clubs, they have like sort of like gay porn playing sometimes, and it's like, it's not like people go there for that. Like, they're just clubs and we're having fun. But I think that there is an element of a lot of like the gay community kind of feels like, are we breaking? Are we sort of like showing our pride, or are we perpetuating stereotypes? And I think that's a very difficult thing that the community kind of is struggling with. But yeah, but I think that obviously that's something that they need to sort of figure out. Would you go on Efab? Yeah, probably. I'm not really familiar with the guys as much. I used to watch a lot of Mahler. Evan Monroe, I chatted with him a couple weeks ago about something. He was really cool. I like his videos. I like his CinemaSins video. Evan Monroe. But yeah, I've kind of fallen out of. I'm so bad at keeping up with videos from other content creators. Like, I used to be better at it, but ever since I started making ones, I feel like also I'm kind of always self-conscious if like, and I think it's happened before in my videos, of like subconsciously either, oh, if this person said it, then I can't make this video because they said it, which is like, I'm kind of getting over. But also, I don't want to like accidentally like absorb a point and then put it in my script, and then even if I don't mean to, and then I'll rewatch it and be like, oh shit, did I steal that idea, or was it like my idea? I think that's part of it, but also just because I don't really have as much time to keep up on all that stuff. What do you think makes the difference between an entertaining crime mystery film and a boring one? Probably character. Because you can have a great plot, but I think the key is like having an interesting character. Like Chinatown is a great example of, like, it's an interesting plot, but the plot itself is actually kind of dry. It's kind of, no pun intended, it's about water shortages, but whatever. If you just look at the facts of the mystery, it's kind of dry. It's kind of, like, it's interesting. It's like convoluted and stuff. It's interesting. But what makes it so good is that Giddy's, the character arc beneath it is, you have this guy who doesn't care, like, he's just a low level PI. He doesn't want anything. He just wants to like live his menial existence. And then we see him start to like get invested in this case. We start to see him sort of like his more altruistic side starts to come out. He says like, I'm not solving this case because I'm hired to. There's almost like sort of like a sense of justice. Like, hey, we need to get the bad guy because that's why I became a detective, is because we actually wanted to help people. And Jack Nicholson does a great job of sort of like he never explicitly states that, but he really does a good job of showing that, like, by the end of the movie, at the beginning of the movie, he doesn't give a shit. He's just like, I'm just doing my job. But by the end of the movie, you really see that he cares about what's happening, and he really wants to take, Noah Cross and these assholes down, because it's like, not because he gets any benefit from it, because he wants to do the right thing. And then, of course, the ending, which just is fantastic because of just how it just shatters that mold. But yes, I think the difference I think between a good entertaining crime mystery film is the character arc beneath it. You can write a really convoluted plot, interesting and a lot of twists and turns, but if there's not like an emotional center in terms of character, and it's just it'll be interesting, but it'll eventually just stop resonating with people. I think. Um, what about the latest Superman being black? I don't really care. It's not that I care about Superman being black. It's more like what a lot of other people voiced. Like, aren't there like other like superheroes that are black that you could have like given a shot? Haven't like they been like people like been asking for these heroes? You just making Superman black just kind of seems like, hey, it's Superman, so it'll make money, so people won't be upset that like, oh, we're afraid that like black superheroes don't make money, even though this has been disproven. It got disproven when Black Panther came out, and people like fucking love like it like over $1 billion, and like studios are still like, we don't know, I don't know. Or like when Wonder Woman came out and like made I think like close to $1 billion, they're like, yeah, we're still not sold on female superheroes though. I don't know. I mean, here's all this evidence refuting us, but like, yeah, we don't know. We're not sure. It's not a safe bet. It's like what? Like that's what's so frustrating about it. It's just like the public has shown you what they want. So that's what's sort of like weird about it. Like when people are saying like, is there like actual bigotry in like these institutions? Like, oh, they're just profit driven. It's like, see, if they are profit driven, they're really fucking stupid because the audience has told you exactly what they want when it comes to representation, diversity. They've proven with their banking, not just like with what they say. They're proven with like their money, with their green. They've proven this. They've shown that like, hey, what we wanted, like this is the sort of stuff we want. In terms of representation, and the studios like it still falls on deaf ears, and they still make the same mistakes they were making like 10 years ago. And so the question is like, are these people really just this stupid, or is there sort of a stubbornness of, you know, is there still a hesitance like, oh, we can't make black protagonists because what if people don't buy the tickets, even though again that's has been disproven God knows how many times. That's sort of like what I think is weird. Maybe they're just stupid. Adrian, is that Lolia behind you? Damn right it is. No, it's not. Which one are you looking at? Oh, it's Lost Cat. That's a good book. You should write a book. I don't know. I don't know if novel is my forte. I've written a couple pilot scripts for television, but I don't know if I could do a full book. I don't really know the medium as well. I don't want to be red pilled. That involves taking drugs, and I don't like drugs. Good. Can we agree that they pushed Rey as the strong female character and was annoying? So here's the thing. I don't think that they push her as that in the movie, like really in the text. I think it's hard to separate it from the... And this is going to kind of be a focal point on in the video. I actually think that like Rey being a woman isn't as big of a deal in the text as people make it out to be. The reason they think it does is because of how much like Lucasfilm like again sucked their own dick about it. Like, oh my god, we have a woman, and it's like, okay, like that's great, but like calm the fuck down. And that's sort of like the double-edged sword is when like these companies like basically like want like all this praise, like they want all this praise for doing this, the bare minimum of representation, and then it kind of bleeds. But then when the movie doesn't really deliver on it, it kind of bleeds into it, and it doesn't even like piss off the forced diversity people. It pisses off the people who want representation. They were like, hey, finally we have like a complicated female protagonist. Like, nope, you have a piece of wood. Then again, I shouldn't say that. It really wasn't Daisy. Like people who choose wood, and it's like again, but there's nothing on the page for her. Like she actually had some great moments in terms of emotion and like acting. Again, that scene where like Kyle reaches his hand out, that could have been excellent. But on the page, there was nothing. So it's hard to. That's kind of my only gripe when like people say like her performance was wooden. In the sense of what I mean by that is like, that is why the film was worse. I actually think it was the other way around. I think it was wooden to some extent, but primarily, almost entirely, because there really just wasn't a cohesive character on the page for her, and so that kind of sucked because it's kind of like it kind of felt like I if we as the viewer don't really know what's going on with Rey and like what her motivations are, how does Daisy? And if you don't know what your character's motivations are, how can you act? How can you make that character as an actress? That's sort of what. But people kind of like took it too far, and like attacked her. Same thing with like when people like attack kind of like Kelly Marie Tran or like Rose as a character, and it's like that was the one thing that was kind of cool about Game of Thrones is like everyone was like really like hyper focused on who the problem was. We know who the problem is. We know who did this. You know, it wasn't the characters, wasn't the actors, wasn't all that. It was we know who the writing was the issue here. So it seemed kind of weird that like that didn't really come across in Last Jedi. Like like Rose is a character. Like she kind of she didn't really have a lot to work with. But again, for what she had, I think Kelly did fine. But again, it's hard because like there's nothing on there's really nothing on the page for them. So like, how do they create characters when there is no character on the page? It's like that's sort of, and that was my big gripe with a lot of Last Jedi critique. Was a lot of it just focused on that, as opposed, or like it kind of like bled them together. Oh, it was the actresses and the actors too. And it's like, nah, it really wasn't them. They all did fine. It was just almost primarily the writing. Let's see. Would you fix Snoke? I mean, there's so little on the page of him. Again, it's another great example. Like, what do you even do with Snoke? He's so insignificant in the grand scheme of things that, like, what would I even do with him? I don't even know. And again, that was kind of another sort of like thing to go back. That was another. Maybe they did just mean Snoke to be just like. I feel like they didn't. I feel like they actually had a plan that Snoke was going to be someone interesting. Like especially like his facial deformity. It seemed like I have a feeling that JJ kind of had a plan that like, oh, Snoke's going to be someone interesting. And then Ryan was just like, nah. But again, it's like Snoke is so boring. Like maybe they just wanted to make like a boring bad guy, maybe. But I have a feeling they didn't. I kind of feel like they had something in mind. But they just he's just a guy. He's just evil, and it's like it's kind of weird. And I hate when people say that too. It's like, oh well, he was never meant to be someone mysterious. It's like, okay, well even if that was the case, they still did not write him well at all. Like he had like no complexity, no character, no anything. Like Palpatine had more in like his Justin Jedi than Snoke had in Force Awakens and Last Jedi. Like if he is just going to be like cannon fodder, at least make him interesting cannon fodder. Exactly, sophistic. The scene with Empire with Luke's face in the Vader helmet, it's perfect. But again, that happens in Empire, which sets up what happens in Jedi. But in Last Jedi, I just tried to do it all together, like in the same movie, and it was like you're making this move too fast. You're trying to convince us that like Rey is like maybe she's gonna like turn to the dark side, even though there was nothing to even suggest that. I think in Force Awakens, at all, right? I don't think there was any hints that like Rey is actually a bad guy in Force Awakens. So it seems like you're really trying to force it here in Last Jedi. Yeah, I really liked Ryan's ideas, but it seemed like he tried to put them all in like the second chapter of a 3-chapter story, and it's like, what are you doing? That's not you can't do that. The war on video games? I don't know what that is, Big Booty Hose. Let's see. I'll say it better, right? Yeah. And again, I think to your point, Addison, I think the problem is that like a lot of people who like talk about like force diversity or like, you know, wokeness or like virtue signaling, political correctness, I actually agree with a lot of this stuff. Because I can kind of, if I'm giving them good faith, I can kind of like, okay, I see what you're talking about. You're doing a terrible job of articulating yourself, but I'm like trying to pull like what you really mean underneath it. I'm trying to get at what you're actually saying. However, I don't think that shouldn't be on the public. Like if you're like putting these opinions out there, if you're going to talk about these, you have the responsibility of being very articulate in what you're saying. You have to like sit down and think out your ideas. Like if I say these ideas, are people going to understand what I'm saying? There are of course going to be people who just take it completely out of context because they want to, because they're forcing to. But you have to ask yourself, are people taking this out of context because they're doing so in bad faith, or am I not articulating well enough? And if you're going to be a public speaker or any sort of content creator, I think that you have the obligation to improve that at every video or every script or whatever you make. Because if you don't, eventually you're going to start attracting an audience who maybe agrees with you on the surface, but not for the right reasons, not for the reasons you want them to agree with you. Let's see. You're already talking about Invincible? Yeah, people have been pitching it for a while. When are you going to make another One Fatal Flaw video? I still have the Midsummer one that I'm thinking about. I have to rewatch it, though. It's been a while. I kind of had an idea in my head for it, but now I'm like kind of like looking back and I'm like, does this actually warrant a whole video? Samuel Shot, do women still love guys with abs or it doesn't matter? Or does it depend on the woman? I feel like a lot of media portrays guys with abs as the Giga Chad. Okay, so here's the thing when it comes to like when like red pill dudes are like so obsessed with like, oh, girls like ripped dudes and this stuff. Any dude in the chat, do you like women who are like fit and athletic and like or like slim and like toned and stuff like that? Like, yeah, I'm sure like a lot of dudes like watching, like, yeah, absolutely. It's like, to those same dudes, do you also like it when a girl is curvy and like has a nice ass and like or like big tits or like is like kind of thicker? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. So it's the same thing with like women. Like people think like women are like this. Like again, it's this idea of like, oh, women are different species. They're different. It's like, no, it's not. Like they're like there are women who say like, oh, guys only like thoughty bitches with like who are like Stacy's and like have like tons of makeup and are like really like superficial. It's like, and then like guys are like watching it like, what are you talking about? Like you have no idea what you're talking about. Like guys don't really, like most dudes don't really give a shit about that. Like we like tomboys. We like we like everything. Short hair, long hair, thick, skinny, whatever. Like people ask me like, what's your type? I'm like, cute. I don't know. Like I'm attracted to them for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't like have a list of like my criteria for like you need this. And what's weird is like the guys don't really realize that like that's sort of the same. It's not. It's they think women again are like this like big different species. It's like, no, it's not. Like some like in most cases like yeah, if you're like severely like obese or overweight, like yeah, it's going to affect your chances a lot. But not only just aesthetically, it just also says a lot about it. Kind of communicate, even if it doesn't. There could be other circumstances, but from the outside, it communicates certain things like your lifestyle, maybe your habits, your sort of discipline in a way. But again, like you said, it depends on the woman, but really it's a matter of, at least in my experience, women don't really care. Like it's nice, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. Part of the another issue I have a lot with red pill rhetoric is like I'm not denying the concept of hypergamy, but the problem is that red pill dudes only focus on very specific criteria for it, like money and abs and being dominant. And it's like that's just like, yeah, those are three elements as like what makes up attraction to someone, but those are only three elements. Like consider anyone in here who has been like in a relationship or like just like had a crush on someone. I'm sure that like when you were attracted to someone or liked them, it was probably for like really strange reasons. It was like how did you know you liked that person? It's like, oh well, one day they did this and I thought that was cute and I felt that way. But like, yeah, it's not like this. Like they treat it like it's like this math equation. Like women have like this like a spreadsheet in their head where they're like, oh, he's like a 9 out of 10 on the looks, a 7 out of 10. Like no, it's just it's not really like that. It's just kind of there's so like. So yeah, like hypergamy, I guess, does exist. Like in the sense that like there are certain things that like you sort of like subconsciously read in a person, and that communicates, that kind of affects your attraction to them. The problem is that there are so many stimuli that are affecting an individual person at any given second that they're not even conscious of, that trying to break it down to like a science of like hypergamy is fucking stupid and a waste of your time. This is why we're like, when people say, hey, you need to like improve yourself to the max you can in terms of like looks, hairstyle, whatever, confidence, do as much as you can to improve yourself, and then put yourself out there. There are going to be some women who just don't like you. There are going to be some who do. Like, if you're taller, if you're like more naturally good looking, will it be easier? Yes. But if you don't maximize everything else you can on your own and then just put yourself out there, you're never going to have luck. Something else I hear, like, a lot of guys are like, well, I actually have friends who, actually really tried pickup, or like tried to put themselves out there, and they didn't get results. And it's like, no, they probably didn't. They probably thought they were, in terms of like putting in hard work, but they probably like really weren't doing what they should be doing. It's very similar to like I hate to say this, but it's true. Every time I hear people say something like, hey, I tried dieting and it didn't work, so I think it's a myth. Like, there are a lot of like unhealthy diets, but like in a lot of cases, people are like, yeah, I tried dieting, and it's like, oh, okay, what did you eat, or what did you do? What did you do? And it turns out like they did it very badly. Another good example, like, hey, I've been going to the gym every day for a year, and I'm not gaining muscle. It's like, okay, do you have a decent lifting program? Are you employing progressive overload? Are you doing things correctly? Are you hitting on the muscle groups? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating the right foods to refuel yourself after the gym? So you can say like, oh, I went to the gym and like I worked hard. It's like, yeah, but if you're just winging it, if you're not going in with a game plan, a structured game plan, then all your hard work's going to be wasted. And I think that happens a lot with guys who are trying to like get better with women. Is they're like, oh, well, I went on Tinder, I went on OkCupid, I went and all this stuff, and I never got any matches. It's like, well, did you optimize everything else? Did you get decent hair? Did you get decent style? Are all your like photos just like mirror selfies of yourself? Okay, so like there's other stuff we have to work on. But because these guys don't have the right guidance in that respect, they do put a lot of effort in, but it's going to waste because they're not putting it in the areas that they can control. And again, that's sort of like why I begrudgingly sort of defend to some extent pickup, because at the very least, it gives guys a structured game plan. It doesn't just say, hey, be confident. Like, what? Or like, go put yourself out there. Like, fuck off. What the fuck does that mean? But like, these guys actually give you like structured game plans on how to do it, and that's the key. The effort, of course, you can have all the effort and like motivation you want, but if you're doing the wrong thing, or if you're like going down like a wrong path, if you're working on misconceptions, you're never going to have success because all your hard work is going to waste. It's like you go to the gym and lift weights every day for like a year, but you like have a shitty sleep schedule and like you don't eat enough to like maximize your gain. You're never gonna you're never gonna gain muscle. It's like you have to be doing everything in conjunction right. Otherwise, all the hard work you are putting forth is just gonna be wasted. What are your thoughts on the upcoming Robert Pattinson Batman movie? Oh, I'm super excited. It's also really interesting because I have to it's interesting. I feel like there was almost no backlash from Black not Harvey Dent, Black Gordon and Black Selena Kyle, Zoe Kravitz is Selena Kyle. It was strange because that's something I'm going to talk about in the Forced Diversity video too. The vitriol for like when it comes to like race swapping, like we're taking like a traditionally white character and making them black or whatever. It's interesting because it seems to only happen sometimes. Like when Zoe Kravitz was cast as Selena, I didn't hear anyone get that mad about it. We were like, cool, she's a good actress, awesome, she fits the character. So that's what's kind of weird. And like, why is it only happen some certain times? And I feel like there is a reason for that, a very important reason that I think is actually very essential to understanding what really, when people complain about forced diversity, what 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 are they really complaining about, or what are they really angry at, even if they can't articulate it. What is the underlying thing? And I think that thing, not to spoil anything, but I think there is an actual thing that they are upset about. Again, they do terrible. A lot of people are very bad at articulating it, but there is something there, and I think the video, at least hopefully, will lead to people being able to articulate this concern of this thing that I think that we should be concerned about, but in a way it doesn't make them come off as like raging lunatics. Thoughts on no fap porn? Good. Do it if you can. Porn never really helped anyone. The thing is, like, there's nothing wrong with porn in and of itself. It's the fact that, like, for like a lot of guys especially, it's their only exposure to sex or intimacy or women, or even women in general. So it can really create a warped perspective. Like I'm sure if, like, if you asked a dude who just, like, all he watches is porn, like, hey, what's an average dick size? And they're like, well, like, what, like 9 or 10 inches? Like, yeah, totally. Or like I actually even had, I think, a guy say, like, women only like dudes who have, like, I love that one too. She only went home with him because he had a big dick. It's like, well, she didn't find out he had a big dick until they got home, so that makes no sense. But like, there's nothing wrong with porn in and of itself, like everything in moderation. The problem is that, like, so many dudes are just, like, straight up addicted to porn, that they just don't, have any other view into which, and any other source onto which to view women or sex or relationships, which is a rude awakening. So when they do get into, like, maybe they do, like, get into pickup and they actually do get with women and they start, like, sleeping with women, their sort of connection between intimacy and sex is sort of, and this is kind of what happened with me. Sex almost kind of feels like more of a performance. Like, oh, this is what the guys did in the video, and you almost, like, dissociate yourself, as if, like, you're pretending like you're still watching a porn. I'm trying. It's kind of weird to describe, but it actually, I think, severe porn addiction can actually result in your own sex, the own sex that you eventually have, coming off as very performative. Like, you're not actually, like, present. You're almost, like, thinking of, like, it almost feels like you think you're on a porn shoot. It's kind of, I'm trying hard to, like, describe it, but, like, you're not really in the moment. You're kind of still sort of, like, thinking about sex as, like, this thing that you only observe, even if you're having sex. It's a little strange. But yeah, no fap, go for it. Samuel Shot, what is it about abs that make it attractive? Well, it's interesting because actually, it's interesting. I think that, like, so if I were to, do you think that, actually, sorry, real quick. Do you think that season 4 of Dexter is conclusive on its own? I do. I think the ending would have been fantastic. It was very dark. It was a cliffhanger, but I think the way it was conclusive was perfect. It's a little strange because it did end on the cliffhanger, but, like, it would have been a sufficient cliffhanger. A cliffhanger isn't always bad, depending on how it's executed. If your series ends on a cliffhanger, or if movie does, it can be excellent. If it's more about, like, the thematic weight of the story, not necessarily, like, the plot. What is it about abs that make it attractive to women? Well, I think there is just an element of just, like, aesthetically, like, some people like that. However, if I'm going to say something, it's interesting because I was on a date with a woman one time, one of my exes, and it was interesting because she said something that was really interesting in terms of me realizing if I were to point out, from my observations, if I were to point out something that I've observed, the big difference between how men and women seem to perceive or, like, feel attraction with someone, for men, it seems to be more, not physical, but more face value. So, for example, like, if I go out with a woman and she's, depending on the clothing she's wearing, like, oh, she seems cool, she seems comfortable, she seems, she seems chill. Like, obviously, she's got a nice butt and boobs. Like, cool, if she's cute. Guys are, I think most guys are more sort of, like, visually, like almost, like, sort of, like, one level deep. I was on a date with this woman, my ex, and she said something very interesting because we were talking about this. I was like, so how do you feel about like dudes who are like really like ripped or like, like really muscular and like bodybuilders? And she said something interesting. She said, see, I find that attractive in the sense that like I aesthetically I like it, but I wonder if like the fact that like this dude is like has like a raging six pack and is like super ripped, it kind of gives me this feel that he's probably a douche in the sense that like he probably like I have a feeling he's the kind of guy who like looks at himself in the mirror more than I do. And that was really interesting. Like and then she said like, what she said about me was like, I can see that like you're in decent shape, but like it's you're someone who isn't gonna like we can go to a bar and like have French fries and a beer, and you're not gonna be like, oh sorry, no carbs. And what I found really interesting was it seemed like, at least in this case, and something I have observed with women in general, women seem to like not even consciously, but almost like they almost perceive on a deeper level, like they like, hey, it's good to have like good hair, it's good to have good clothes, but it's not really about the clothes. It's about like the fact that you chose those clothes. It shows that you have it's not about like, hey, she's attracted to those clothes. It's like, oh, this guy knows how to dress himself. He seems competent. He has good style. So a woman sees like a guy with a six pack or like who's like really fit. I mean, like there is an element of like, oh, hey, he's good looking. I'm attracted to that body type, but also, oh, this guy seems like he takes care of himself. He's competent. He is disciplined. Same thing with we were talking about earlier with like guys who are like maybe more obese or like larger. It isn't some like obviously like there are going to be people who just aren't going to be interested in you because they're not attracted to that. But I think there's also another element of it sort of seems like if you're like obese, like, oh, and again, there could be other reasons for it. But what I think a lot of people sort of perceive from that is like, oh, it seems like you probably don't. Do you put in effort to your appearance? Do you have bad habits? Do you eat bad things? It's more about like sort of like what it says about what it perceives about you as a person, not just looks. And especially with women, because I feel like women are, like for a lot of women, especially like very good looking women, they're like they have tons of dudes who are just like all over them. Probably a lot of really good looking dudes. So eventually women are kind of like, yeah, but they're good looking, but I want something more. And this is, I think, a really important mindset for guys to adopt too. Like, oh, I really like this girl. It's like, do you like her, or do you just think she's cute? Like, they're like, and this is like what I tried to get across in the video. Like, what, oh, but she's really good looking. I want to date her. Like, do you really want to date her? Like, what if she's a bitch? What if she's mean? What if she's boring? What if she's obnoxious? Like, there's this idea that like, oh, she's good looking. So like you ever see like those in movies, like the teen movies, where like the fucking idiot dude like is in love with the cheerleader, even though she's a colossal bitch. And it's like, why do you like her? And then like he has like his female best friend who's like fucking hot as hell. Like she's supposed to be the ugly girl, but she's still hot. And like she's like all over him and they have the same interests and she's like super sweet. And he's like, oh no, I want that girl who like treats me like a piece of shit, but because she's hot. It's like that's like, to me, that just shows a lack of self-respect. Like, especially with dudes, like, guys tend to just be so. And the other thing too is like this actually comes off the woman. If you seem like you're just interested in a girl because of her looks, she's gonna get. She knows that she's not stupid. The question is like, are you actually interested in what she has to say and actually who she is? Are you attracted to the person she is, or just to her aesthetics? This is kind of goes back to what we were talking about, or what like a lot of red pill guys say. It's like, hey, it's okay to like don't be a doormat to a woman, and a lot of guys mistake this as like, oh, I need to be dominant and like be like Chad. Like, no, not that. It's more about like if you're like too agreeable, it comes off as if like if you're on a date with a woman and like you just like are like sucking her dick the entire time, you're just like patting her on the back and like, yeah, absolutely, totally, yeah. How does that come off? It comes off as like this dude's just trying to say what he This dude is just trying to say what I think I want to hear so he can get me home. And that is just really unattractive because it's like you're not you're attracted to me, but like you're not interested in anything else about anything. You're just like counting the minutes till you can get us out of here. And so I think an element of like, holding your ground, standing your ground, not being a dick about it, but like, like holding to your own beliefs, sort of it's not just that like dominance. Blah. It's more about like, oh, okay, this dude isn't just trying to like get me home immediately. He's actually like, he's not afraid to like say something that like maybe we'll disagree on, like, and that's, and again, this is the whole thing with Red Pill. It's the same information, but the framing is what matters. It's how it's framed and like put in the context that can either lead to like really great self-improvement or it can lead to incredibly toxic behavior. And that's sort of the thin line that we're trying to draw with Red Pill crap. It can be very dangerous. What up, Pink? Let's see. Sorry, I'm a little bit behind. Speaker thoughts on Roma Army? Grifter. She just does the same old shit. She just points out like double standards and then doesn't say anything about them. Dating is hard for men. Great. Do you have like actual tips that you can give guys to help them out? Or is the entire theme just like women are stuck up whores? Because if they are, you're indistinguishable from every other red pill channel. It's just that you're an attractive woman saying it, so all these guys will like, see, the woman said it. Like you're still like pushing bullshit, and none of it's correct. Like if she actually this is the whole thing. Like double standards are important because they show us where our system is like broken. If there's a double standard like against men, okay, we should examine that and try to fix it. But if the whole reason you're pointing out a double standard is but then not trying to fix it or address it, you're just trying to derail the conversation. You're just trying to point out a double standard. It's like, okay, the whole point of pointing out a double standard is so you can address it and like wonder, hey, why is there a double standard? Maybe we can fix this and maybe we can actually try to make it better. If you just point it out, yeah, and then people cheer and then you get money and then that's over. Like that's what I mean. It's just maybe, I don't know. Maybe she's sweet. Maybe she's doing it because she wants to help dudes. But if she is, she's not doing a very good job. She's actually doing like again. People will say it's like, oh well, you can't control your audience. You can't control the comment sections. I think not necessarily to define the character of a particular person, a particular content creator. I think comment sections are a very interesting way to gauge how one's rhetoric is coming off. Even if Roma Army's rhetoric is done in good faith, or like she's trying to like do something good, maybe she doesn't mean to be pushing like toxic ideas. One look at like the comment sections of just like the vitriol that a lot of people are just commenting. To me, it's her responsibility to be like, oh, okay, maybe I should like kind of reel off or maybe like add more context, because it seems like it seems like I'm trying to make things better and like end toxicity or point double standards out to actually make things better, and it's being taken the wrong way and just turning into toxicity. The fact that she doesn't seem to acknowledge that, the fact that she doesn't seem to make an effort to quell that, makes me think, one, she's either ignorant to it, or two, she's just a grifter. I can't read her mind. I just have to go off her actions. Same thing with Alexander Grace. A lot of guys say like, oh, well, he seems nice. I don't care. I don't know anything about him. I don't know what is in his head. He could be doing this totally sincerely. He could be doing this just to, play on guys' insecurities to get money. All I know is based on what he's saying and how his audience is receiving the information. That is the only thing I can judge someone on. If that's the case, I would argue he's extremely toxic, even for the people he is helping. And again, I hear this all the time with like red pill dudes. Like, oh, well, they've helped a lot of people. Yeah, they have helped a lot of people, but they could still do that without pushing these this toxicity. And it's their carelessness to do it. Either, again, one, they're either careless about it, they're unaware that it's happening, which is kind of hard for me to believe, or two,
they kind of know what they're doing. They kind of know what base they're speaking to. Especially like I wouldn't really call myself a feminist. I really wouldn't even like identify as such, because I think like the whole thing with feminism MRAs has gotten so vitriolic that like you can't even discuss actual ideas. It just gets wrapped into labels. But if I started a channel like that, like Think Before You Sleep guy or like Undead Chronic, like fucking idiots like this, like there's a huge market for just shitting on feminism. And again, I'm not like a huge fan of like modern feminism. There's actually a lot I want to critique. But if all you're doing is just shitting on it and not actually like giving any observations or like, hey, maybe this or maybe this is a better way to frame it. If you're just pointing out how stupid it is, then what are you doing? We know what you're doing. There's an audience for this of just people just want to be angry about stuff and just hate on this shit, and it's you make a shit ton of money doing it. But I don't have any respect for that. I think that's just complete bullshit, like just grifting. Ugh. Let's see. What do you think the Marvel movies aren't real cinema? I don't know. I think that's dumb. Like, what do you like? White Chicks is cinema. Like, is it not quality cinema? It depends, depending on the movie. But saying it's not cinema, I guess like with Scorsese, I would ask him like, what do you mean? What's your definition of cinema? Like that's the whole thing. Like no one really asked him what he meant. It seemed like, and like I think I kind of understand. Like given him, he's more of like cinema in terms of the artistry of it, in order to tell like an emotionally resonant story. With like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, it's about pushing the envelope. Where I think he looks at stuff like the Marvel movies and sees more of like a cash grab, more of sort of like pulp entertainment. There's no real like, there's a lack of passion behind it in a sense, which to some extent I agree with. To some extent I don't know. But the fact that like no one actually asked Scorsese like, okay, let's actually like flesh out what do you mean by cinema, you know? I think that's interesting. But unfortunately, that never got brought up. It just kind of like, you're saying movie isn't this, and it just devolved into fucking stupid ass people throwing off hot takes and not asking for nuance, just being, yeah. You're welcome, Colin. Thank you for advocating for a less toxic sense of masculinity. Thank you. Let's see. Well, that's what's so funny, Avajant Zero. Man must be strong and abs can show his muscular advantage. Abs actually are not really a sign of strength. They're usually a sign of weakness. In order to usually get like a ripped six pack, you have to restrict your calories to such an extent and dehydrate yourself to such an extent that when you see like a bodybuilder on stage when he's like when they're like ripped as fuck, they are weak as fuck. Because they haven't eaten anything in the last like 4 days and they haven't drank any water in the last 2. And that's the irony. It's like having that low body fat usually isn't good. If you look at strongmen, they're like these big beefy dudes, the fat, because they're just constantly eating just calories, because they need it. They need that energy. They need that fuel. They need those reserves. Look at Olympic lifters. Like they're fit, but they're not like super ripped lean. They usually have a decent amount of, like, again, they're built, but they have like, some fat on them. Because restricting your calories and water intake to such extremes should never be done. I think bodybuilding like that is fucking stupid. You're just gambling with your life. But outside of like doing it for like bodybuilding shows or like weigh-ins, which are equally as fucking stupid the way they're structured, like people like cutting weight to such an extent, it's fucking dumb. Yeah. Vox Lux, I do not know what that is. Thank you, James P, for the congratulations. Thank you, Synergy. I appreciate that. Yeah. Oh no, it's still coming out. I just have to get on the finale. What is your favorite group / piece of independent media? I don't know. I might have to come back to you on that, because I'm always like wondering like what independent is, like what is the like, sometimes I don't know, like it's like if an independently made film, but then it gets distributed by like a major studio, or I don't know. It's hard. I feel like indie has become more of like, when we're talking about like independent, I feel like indie has become more of like a aesthetic. Like there's certain like even if it was made by like Warner Brothers, like with like $100,000 budget, there's a certain indie aesthetic um that it has sort of like taken over. Like when I say like, oh, an independent film, there's a sort of like a certain vibe that people think of. Not the fact that it was just made independently, but there's a certain like aesthetic vibe that people talk about. So I might have to come back to you because I'm sure like I love a lot of media that are independent films or is independent media that I have no idea that is. Do you think animation should be just as respected as live action? Absolutely, if not more so. I don't know if not more so, but like why not? I don't really understand the bias against animation. Like a story is a story, told in pictures. Like stuff like Waltz with Bashir, um, is a masterpiece. The Pixar films, like it's just I don't really get why. I think because like live action or sorry, animation is always associated with um like sort of like children, like which is so dumb because it's a stupid. Those aren't correlated, but yeah. But no, I think that anyone who like downplays animation for any reason is fucking stupid. Important question: Resident Evil Village playthrough. Monday. I think I'm gonna play my first round on Monday. I bought the game, downloaded it. It's on my computer. I think I'm gonna schedule it for Monday because I'm really interested. I've never played 7, even though I heard great things about it. But I kind of like I posted in like the community tab like a couple videos or a video of recapping Resident Evil 7 because I've never gone around to playing 7. I was going to. I eventually like got around to it, but I just never got around to it. But I kind of like got the main story beats, all the DLCs and stuff. So going into 8, I kind of know what the deal is. So yeah. But yes, Resident Evil Village playthrough. First episode will be on Monday. So be ready for that. Yeah, when it comes to women, I kind of find a lot of different body types attractive. Like women can be pretty in a lot of different ways, in the same way men can be handsome in different ways. Yeah, it's like that's the thing. It's like, oh, do girls like muscular dudes or like bigger dudes? Like, well, I mean, women might have certain preferences, but I have a feeling that like, again, like who you're attracted to isn't like this is the irony that a lot of red like pickup artist dudes and like red pill dudes will say this, where it's like you can't choose who you're attracted to, and like you're right, attraction isn't a conscious process. It's innate. It's just you're attracted to someone, you're attracted to them. There's nothing you can't control it. Obviously, like if you're attracted to them and they're like a abusive piece of shit, your mind can be like, yeah, okay, yeah, we're not gonna. Your mind can override that. But this idea that like, but the problem is that like they accept that attraction isn't a choice and it's completely up to the individual person, and yet they still try to narrow it down to a very strict criteria. It's like, oh, you have to have a 6-pack. Oh, you have to have money and status and clothes. All these things, I think, on average, like again, like being 6'2", on average, will help. It's not gonna. It doesn't. I have a feeling it's not gonna hurt in any way. Like being 6'8" can hurt, or being like 4'8" can hurt. But like being 6'2", like yeah, that can actually help compensate for other things where you may be lacking. Maybe you're not like a super aesthetic. But the way they like frame it is if like, oh, if you're under 5'10", good, like you're never gonna get a girl. Like just shut the fuck up. Like that makes no sense. Like it's so dumb. It's so dumb. And the irony is it's actually completely falsified or proven false by the pickup artist community, where you have like tons of guys who used to look like absolute noobs, hardcore like World of Warcraft, Magic the Gathering playing nerds, taking beautiful women home. So like that, this whole idea of like, oh, you need to be like a chat, like that makes no sense. But again, these pickup artist dudes, they convince themselves the reason they get laid because of the techniques. No, it turns out that if you're a dude and you have a decent style, decent, put effort into your appearance, have sufficient self-confidence and social calibration. You go out to a place and you ask out, and over the course of a week, you ask out like say 100 women. And again, this is like how much people don't realize that too. It's like, oh, I asked this girl out in my class. You don't understand that like pickup artists, even like the most like top tier ones, they make so many fucking approaches. And they strike out so many fucking times. I think More Plates and More Dates even like said this, like success rate for, I think even pickup artists have admitted this, success rate for like getting a girl's like getting her home like from a club or something, or like sleeping with her, 10%. Even for like the ultra like special guys. It's just it's a numbers game. It's a matter of just like being the best version of yourself, like controlling for everything, style, confidence, like your flirting skills, stuff like that, and then just going up to a shit ton of women, and eventually probably one or two will be like, okay, I'm feeling this. But the trick is, the scam is that pickup artist guys convince you that it wasn't that. It wasn't just the fact that you put yourself out there and like improved yourself and like became someone who like showed they had like, who took care of themselves and had confidence and just like talked to women. That isn't why you got laid. It's because of all my techniques and my guides. Like that's like it's like the whole 80-20 rule. 80% of like the reason you got laid, or like 80% of the times you get laid is going to have nothing to do with any of like pickup artist bullshit rhetoric. It's just gonna maybe even 90%. Like all these, but again, all these guys are convinced that like, oh, it must have been because I knew these like super special techniques. Like no, it's not. Like she probably wanted to fuck you. If she ended up fucking you, she probably wanted to fuck you like within like 10 minutes of talking. You didn't convince her. The night went where it was eventually going to go because you were confident, you looked good, and she was horny. Like that's the whole secret. That's the whole lie when it comes to pickup artistry. But again, they need to keep selling programs. So yeah, exactly, Dakota. Exactly, Book. Like the vibe energy. The irony is like guys will like complain about women like being like really bitchy or like really stuck up, and then they will put up with, just to try to get a girl in bed, they will put up with so much shit and so much like horrifically toxic behavior from like certain women, and they'll be like, oh, but I really want to fuck her. Why? Because she's hot? Like you can't simultaneously overlook toxic behavior to try to get laid and then complain about the toxic behavior. Like if you're enabling it. If you go up to someone and like, if a woman is like really super rude to you, and like anyone with any sort of confidence or like common sense would be like, oh, I don't want to be associated with this person. But dude, some of these dudes are so desperate to like have even a chance at getting laid that they'll just overlook it. And it's like, yeah, you're enabling this behavior to some extent. You need to stop. Like, holy shit. But for a lot of guys, but for so many guys, the thought of just not even getting a girlfriend, is having sex is so ingrained as like the end goal. That's all they care about. They don't have to care they don't care what they have to do to get it. But that actually comes, it just is not good. It just leads to a lot of bad shit. Shit, where are we? Okay. But yeah, Resident Evil playthrough Monday. Mission Impossible movies. I've heard they're really good. I actually haven't gone around. I've seen like the first one a million times. I haven't seen 2. I think I saw 3. 4, 5, and 6 I've heard are fantastic. And isn't there a 7th one now too? I don't know. But I've heard they're all great, which is weird because I never would have thought that like that would have been like an incredibly celebrated franchise. Thanks for reminding me. I'm actually have to get back on those. Yeah, exactly, Addison May. Oh my God, same thing with women. There's been so many women who like I've gone up to. It's like, oh, this girl seems really cool or like really sweet, and then like within 10 minutes of talking, I'm like, just because that sort of like perception you have of the person, you kind of perceive what their personality is like when you see them, right? Like what you kind of take them in and you see their clothes, their appearance, or how they're acting, and you kind of have a perception of what they're like, and you're attracted to that. But then when you get up and it completely conflicts with what you thought, it's like, or at least like if they're sweet or if they're nice. Oh my God, how many times have I I've met women who like from the outside, like I was like, this chick has got to be a total fucking bitch. Like, you know, I don't mean like not politically correct, but like I've seen women who I'm like the way she was looking, the dress, like everything in my mind was screaming like this woman must be just like obnoxious. And then we go out, we start talking, and she's like an absolute sweetheart. Um, and again, the problem is that like for a lot of dudes, they don't really care about that. They end up. It's so funny. They like again, they're like, oh, how come women are bitches? It's like because you clearly don't care about personality because all you care about is just getting laid. So why are you complaining about like toxicity and like the toxic behavior? If that's not what you're looking for, if that's not what you're, if you're not calling it out or if you're just putting up with it, you're enabling it. So it's hypocritical for you to criticize it if you're enabling it simultaneously. MWTJ, they do though. Women are more selective than men in every aspect, from looking to a partner to looking for shampoo. Why do you think that is, Jay? See, this is what's so funny when people say this, when women are more selective. Good. Guys should be that selective. The problem isn't women being too selective. Like, obviously, in some cases it is. Like, when chicks are like, I want a guy who's like 6'5" and makes like $800,000 and has a 13-inch dick. Like, yeah, those women are just stupid, though. We know that. Everyone knows that. But the fact that women are selective about who they spend their time with is a good thing. It's good. It means that they actually like aren't just like, oh, this hot guy. Okay, you're hot, but like, do you have a good personality? Like it should be something. And as a person, you should want to be selective. You don't just want to date anyone. Like, oh, this hot girl, she wants to date, but like, what if like you go out to dinner and you're miserable? Oh, well, she's really hot. The sex is great, but like, what if like any other time you're doing something, you're just miserable, and she's like stupid and like just obnoxious, and she's rude to like the waiter and the bartender. So this idea that like women being selective is the problem, it's like, no, it's not. And more often than not, it's men being non-selective. It's men trying to stick their dick in anything they can with a pulse. And what that ends up happening is like, you know, this is when you get like simp culture and like white knight culture. Is like when dudes are like, and again, that goes back to the video. The whole that woman on the Jubilee video, like all the comments were like, "Oh, this bitch, she's so stuck up." It's like, and again, I used to feel that way, but rewatching it, I'm like, this woman probably was told throughout her life from men, from women, from her, like people around her that like everything she was doing was perfect because she was hot. Probably, especially from the men. She probably had a lot of relationships where the guys, where she probably was, that there probably were aspects of her personality or maybe her behavior that were off-putting to guys that did sort of affect her ability to find like a fulfilling relationship. But the guys never said anything because they just wanted to fuck her. So what ends up happening? She kind of has this. No one ever tells her that she's like doing something. She's being toxic. So why would she think she was be? It's this big irony again that guys, so many guys complain all the time. Oh, women are toxic and stuck up. But then when it comes to a woman they want to fuck, they just overlook it all. They're like, so like they talk tough. They're like, oh, I don't want to put up with this. And then the moment a pretty girl like flashes her eyes, the dude's like a puppy dog, and he just. It's not about women being selective. It's that men need to gain the confidence to be selective. To not just put up with, and guess what? That will be attractive to. That's what is attractive to women. When a woman sees that, like, oh, this guy actually is looking for something more than just. This guy is actually interested in me outside of just my looks. Oh, okay, that shows. People will, oh, it's like her hypergamy because she wants to chase because she's insecure. No, it's because it demonstrates that you as a person have confidence. You have self-respect. That's the thing. The red pill bullshit gets the right formula, but the wrong answer. That's the whole like thing. It's like you got like the right answer with the wrong formula. It's the other way around. Like they have like the right formula. It's like, oh, good, and they like frame the answer they come up with. The conclusion is so like off base and like and warped, and it's like fucking shit. Like you were so close, you idiots. Well, that's the other thing too. It's like when you're talking about like societal trends of women in America, Why does that matter when you're sitting across from a girl at a bar? Don't worry about what women across America think. Think about what the woman sitting across from you thinks. Hey, what's this? I don't know. Even if someone isn't traditionally attractive, their personality can still be very magnetic. Interesting enough, I have actually spoken to a lot of women who find it interesting. They're more drawn to someone who is confident when they're not traditionally good looking. It's if you look like absolute snack Aaron Samuels, it's very easy to be confident, right? If you like have like the abs and the looks, it's very easy to be confident. What I found, and it was actually interesting, when women I've known have seen men who really aren't like physically attractive, who aren't that maybe they're not like like aesthetic gods, like they just kind of look like average dudes, but they have but they're very confident, they're very friendly and outgoing. That is incredibly magnetic because it shows, oh, this dude is confident, but he's not just confident because he looks like a aesthetic Brad Pitt god. He's confident because he has, even if he's like a bit overweight, even if he's maybe like has balding hair or something, even if it doesn't look that like isn't like aesthetically the best, it shows that he has something. There's something there. He has a self-confidence that isn't just coming from his looks. So what is that? I'm interested. What is that all about? That's intriguing to me. There you go. I quit porn recently because it was warping me. Yeah, that happens. Will you ever bring back Finale Face Off? Yeah, I kind of still want to do the Leftovers versus Lost. I still really want to do that. I don't know if I'm going to do the How I Met Your Mother and Seinfeld one, because the Seinfeld, the How I Met Your Mother, the finale Face Off between Seinfeld and How I Met Your Mother was really just an excuse to talk about what I wanted to talk about in the Seinfeld video. So maybe I'll scrap that one. But I still want to do the Leftovers and Lost finale Face Off. I just haven't gotten around to it. I'll eventually get to it. Let's see. Which you like more, Always Sunny or The Office? I like Office. Just because I kind of like Always Sunny, I do enjoy it, but I think I like the more like the more like sort of like good-heartedness of The Office. Like it can still get really taboo and really like risque, but I still like the heart to it. With Michael, like he's just like fucking Steve Carell. He's just adorable in it. Like he just really is. Like it never feels mean-spirited or it's I think The Office, like especially like seasons like 3 through 5 are like in terms of writing, like just top tier. Anything after season 7 can suck my dick. Not I should say that can yeah, because suck your dick's kind of good, right? Yeah, I would like that. Yeah, I don't know. They're just not good. I've been single since I'm recovering from an abusive relationship. It's hard. Yeah, take your time, bitches. It's very hard to build that trust up again. People will be like, "Oh, get someone out there and find someone else." It's like that's not what I want to do right now. You need to heal and take your time. I think I think men lust first, then go into personality. Women guess personality on looks and then attempt to attach to character. I have no idea what that even means, JH. That seems like a very I think you're thinking too much into it. I don't even know what this means. Women guess personality on looks and then attempt to attach the character to that idea. I don't know what that means. Pop culture detective, he's okay. Some of his takes are a little bit like, like I think he's being nuanced, and then he'll kind of like go in the other direction. I'm like, whoa, okay, slow back. Kind of the same thing with like Renegade Cut or who else? Or The Take. I saw a couple of their videos recently, and like, oh, it seems nuanced. And then like in the last 5 minutes, like they start like making like just as like reactionary claims just on like the left side of the aisle. And I'm like, okay, hang on. I think we're reading into it a little bit too much. Let's see. Sorry, I think I'm still catching up. Are there any non-toxic pickup artists? Check out the guy Charisma King. I put his info in the description for my dating video. His name's Denton. We actually texted before the video came out because I really wanted to get him on and kind of like have a chat. It never ended up happening. It just didn't work out time wise, but I spoke to him. He seemed really chill. I really like his videos. There are some things like obviously like I wouldn't agree with. We probably wouldn't see eye to eye on them, but in terms of like trying, he actually had the video that I linked in the description called um why hate-based ideologies will like ruin your lives, and he really talks about like he kind of addresses like there is a line in the pickup community where it turns into toxic, and um he's said that like I really want to stray away from that because it can get very toxic very quickly. Again, we probably wouldn't agree on everything, but I think that he's someone who I respect in the sense that it seems like he's aware of the toxic elements and trying to, hey, let's keep the good stuff, but like let's cut out the more toxic stuff. Todd V is pretty good. There's a couple of videos on his channel where I'm kind of like, I don't, maybe shouldn't have posted that one, bro. But again, I think it also falls into the issue of he was an old RSD coach. I think it kind of falls into the issue of like YouTube, you need to generate content, right? So you need to get more ideas, and eventually you're gonna come across a time where you just kind of put out like, oh, this video a good idea? Maybe not. Maybe it's a little toxic. Yeah. Is it normal for men to not get compliments like women do? No. I would say most guys don't get complimented at all. Whenever I do, I'm like, fuck yeah. But it happens like once in a blue moon. I had like an older woman at the there's a market around the corner, and one of the women like said she thought I was cute, and was like, oh, it made my whole week. Even as someone with like a girlfriend for 3 years, like it's for especially dudes, like just like those little things, it can. Because again, it's hard for like I think with women, it's hard too, because like a lot of women are like, is he really giving me a compliment, or is he just trying to like get my number and get me in bed? So it can kind of like desensitize. It kind of sucks. Because there are plenty of women who actually don't get compliments as much as dudes either. But I think with women, they kind of always have this expectation of, rightfully so, of just like, do you actually like my style? Do you actually think I'm cute, or do you like my hair or whatever, or do you just want to fuck me? Whereas with dudes, I feel like, I mean, maybe the chick does want to fuck you, but it doesn't really come off that way. It seems like very genuine, I think, for a lot of dudes. When a woman, because again, I think a woman having to come up and say that is much more difficult. So I think as a dude, like I appreciate that more because I'm like, oh shit, I know that like you probably that isn't something that you normally do. It's like, oh shit, that's very nice. Made me very, made my whole week. So it's possible people find me attractive and I don't know it. That's basically, unfortunately, the reality of human existence. Usually the people you are interested in keep you sort of occupied from the people who are actually interested in you, and that's how it goes. Thank you, Caleb. Thanks for congratulations. You can't Super Billy, you can acknowledge general attraction trends and the evolutionary basis for said trends without acknowledging the myriad exceptions. Exactly. I can talk about like, hey, again, women probably on average will be more attracted to a guy who is taller or who is aesthetically gifted, or maybe like has like looks athletic, or is like, has a six pack. On average. The problem is when you have so many exceptions. Like, think about, like, I always bring this up. Think about like women in like Pretty Boys. Like, I've known women who like went fucking insane over like men who were like, who I was like, that guy, like really? Like, he looks like he weighs less than you, and like you're attracted. You're like, yeah. And it's like this idea that like, women. Here's another interesting thing. If the idea that like women like really loved men who like, it's like, oh, biological because they want to protect them, you would think that the more muscular a man was, that she would be more attractive, right? Because he could protect people. It's like, Well, if you ask any woman, at some point, men kind of get too muscular. They get too weird. They're like really bulging in muscles, and it gets really unattractive. And so but that kind of conflicts with that idea of like, oh well, if you're biologically determined to be attracted to a man who can protect you, wouldn't you be more attracted to like the really really big, strong, bulky guys? And it's like, no, that's not how. There's so many other factors involved in the process that for me, what I think is that if you're a dude and you're just trying to like get a girlfriend, don't even think like, why does that matter? If you're sitting across from a woman, if you're 5'10" and sitting across from a woman who like doesn't care about your height, why does it matter that like, well, this study that I saw says that women prefer taller? Why does that matter? You're sitting across from a woman who doesn't care about that. So don't worry about it. And that's what happens. Like these guys end up becoming so it makes them so paranoid. Like they could be out with a beautiful woman and or like have like a wonderful girlfriend, and they're constantly worried like, oh, what if I'm not making enough? What if she leaves me for Chad? Like, stop it. Like stop it. Like and you end up fucking up your own relationship because you don't think you're worthy enough of this woman who is like, she's there, dude. You it's over. You did it. She's there. You got her. You're good. You're in a relationship. Great. Why are you fucking yourself up? And this is what red pill shit does. It like infects these dudes, and they're so swamped by this rhetoric that they can never. It also affects their trust. They always, even if a woman is like super sweet and kind, there's always like this like, for all you guys, or if you're listening, if you like Alexander Grace, watch his video on like, I think he said something along the lines of like, you don't have to trust women to be in a relationship with her. I guess you don't have to trust her. That sounds like fucking hell to me if I was in a relationship with someone who I couldn't trust, or was like I was constantly like paranoid of, or trying to like make sure I measure up to, and like I felt like didn't actually care about me. Yeah, you can be in a relationship with that person. That sounds like living hell, but yeah, good on you. And unfortunately, it results in a lot of guys not being able to, or like if they do end up like finding a woman who's gorgeous and sweet and likes them for who they are, they don't believe it. How many times have you heard a guy like they're out at a club or something and a girl does show interest, and the guy's immediate instinct is to be like, oh, she must be fucking with me. There's no way that, look at her. She's interested in me? No, she must be fucking with me. She must be, her friends must be over there and they're laughing. Like, or maybe she likes you. Like, what are you doing? Stop it. Stop fucking yourself up. And this exists for all guys. Like that anxiety, it does, especially like for a lot of dudes who are lacking self-confidence. But the red pill shit just like exacerbates it to the point where even if you become someone who is successful with women, you end up fucking over your own relationships because you have no trust of the other person. It's really, really sad. I was in love with Fallout. Yeah, I've heard that was like excellent. And I was like, really? Harvey, have you considered making your videos shorter? No. I mean, I have tried to get better at sort of like cutting things down. Like I think my original draft of the Last of Us 2 script was like not twice as long, but like it would have been like 4 hours. But then I cut it down to 3 hours and 15. Even then I probably could have cut it down. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier. I'm very conscious of like, hey, when I make this point, am I being very careful in what I'm saying? I think the problem that I'm making is, what I'm trying to like improve is, instead of making sure of that by repeating myself or like backtracking or explaining myself like 3 or 4 times over, maybe I should just try making that initial statement better. Just edit that initial statement better, so that way, yeah, I lost my train of thought. Worst brat mit butter. Can we go through that vanity stack behind you? I can only make out Watchmen, and that's already pretentious as fuck. Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. I don't even remember where I got that copy of Tale of Two Cities. I love that story, but I hate that book. I hate, we talked about it in Discord. I love the story of Tale of Two Cities. I fucking hate reading the book. Damn it. Like, it's such a kick ass story, and then, like, Charles Dickens just, like, jerks off. Like, that book could be, like, half the length and be just as good, if not better. Damn it. What are the questions he's answering? I don't know. What do you think of Better Call Saul? I have not seen any Better Call Saul beyond the pilot. I know. I don't know why. I think it was because I kind of was a little bit skeptical of it. But now I've heard that people rank it above Breaking Bad. I'm like, oh shit. So maybe if season 6 ends good, which I assume it's going to be because Vince Gilligan is actually good at that. Um, um, so I have no, not Charisma on Command. He's Charisma King with K's. He's in, just check the description in the dating video. Charisma on Command's kind of weird. I don't know. There's like, I don't know. There's kind of something weird about him. I don't know. I don't like him. Like, he gives good advice, but it seems like kind of weird. I don't know. Ty Lopez? No, he's not Ty Lopez. But yeah, kind of. But yeah, I actually, if season 6 of Better Call Saul goes well, I might end up just pulling the trigger and watching it. Let's see. You don't have to trust me is something the villain says when you're forced to team up. Thank you. And guess what ends up happening? They end up fucking you over at some point. I told you not to trust me. Like, yeah. Hey, good job, Ned. Let me trust Littlefinger. Why not? How could this possibly... I almost... See, it's so funny because, like, I can't even, like, be mad at Littlefinger for that. It's like, he did tell you. It's like... I almost kind of feel bad for Littlefinger. Well, I feel like even the audience wasn't even like that. Like, the audience was like, oh, you're supposed to hate Littlefinger. It's like, no, not really. He basically flat out said, like, I'm probably going to betray you. You can trust me, but, like, I'm probably going to fuck you over. And I was like, why not? I'm just going to put all my trust in you. It's like, Ned, I don't know, man. Well, it depends on how old you are, James P. I've been single my whole life. Depends on how old you are. What was I gonna say? My girlfriend loves that fucking Olivia Rodrigo bitch. And there's like one line in the song where she's like, what is the line? I know you were perfect. We weren't perfect, but I've never felt this way for no one. And I'm always like, because you're 16, dumbass. No, good for her. I know all of that High School Musical, the series drama, because of my girlfriend. She knows it all. So I know, like, the whole Sabrina Carpenter thing, the interchangeable prick guy's name, Olivia Rodrigo, how all of her songs, you know, cultural reset. I don't know. It's weird. I know far too much about, like, Disney Channel lore because of my girlfriend. Or, like, with, like, relationships between, like, the Jonas Brothers and Demi Lovato. Or Selena Gomez, or whatever the fuck. Miley Cyrus. I don't know. I can't make them out. Literally, what's the stack? Well, we already went over it. But I have Watchmen, Tale of Two Cities, Touching the Distance, which is Ian Curtis's widow's memoir. A couple of Jason books. Check out Jason. He's just named Jason. Check him out. And Sid Field's screenplay, which is the godfather of all screenplay books. Favorite Shakespeare story? All of them suck. No, I'm kidding. Well, I'm glad that you said that, James. Favorite Shakespeare story, not favorite Shakespeare play. I hate reading Shakespeare. Like, I know it was back then. I don't care. It's like with Tale of Two Cities. Hey, we just had a great first chapter that was, like, really interesting, and I'm really sure you want to get to the story. I'm just gonna do, like, a fucking little riff on like, look at all these people in their homes and they all have their own story. Like, dang, oh, all right, Charles, like you're going on for like 3 pages. Fuck, can we get to the damn story? Shit, who was your editor? I think a couple of you guys in Discord pointed out that like he got paid by the word for that book, but still. Yeah, seriously, worse. It's like he's just named Jason, just the artist Jason. But yeah, you can find his books on Amazon. There's the one behind me, Lost Cat. That one's awesome. You should get that one. Will Rock, I've had your stream in the background for almost 2 hours while doing some schoolwork. Before I go to sleep, I really want to say how much I enjoy your content. Thank you, man. We'll probably wrap up in another like 5-10 minutes. And yeah, I'll probably, if any of you guys are in the Discord, I'll hop in VC for a bit. I need to eat something. Here I go, forgetting again. Any more of the crafted videos coming? Yeah, you know, I meant to get a couple of them out while I was making the dating video, but I just got so caught up in that with the research and editing and making sure that I didn't like I didn't do anything stupid or I actually, it's funny, in the dating video I actually had an entire section describing why I think both modern feminism and the modern men's right movement are both really fucking dumb. Again, not in concept. I think in concept, feminism and the men's rights movement, I think they're actually I think they're both good. I think they actually could be both necessary and effective. The problem is I think both of them are like right now are completely fucked for different reasons. But it seems like instead of addressing that shit, most people just complain like, well, feminism isn't as bad as men's rights movement. Well, men's rights movement isn't as bad as feminism. Like you're both shut up. Like that Family Guy joke where it's like Jake Gyllenhaal, Maggie Gyllenhaal. Kids, please, you are both just awful. And it's just like, yeah, like you're so busy like complaining about one another or defending your side that you never actually like have any self-awareness of like, hey, are we actually not? Are we actually doing things that are turning people off? And it's like, yeah, you are. Yeah, but still, I can't, like, I'm trying to, like, again, the Tale of Two Cities, the story is fucking awesome. Like, it's hardcore, man. It's dope. But shit. Like, I could crack that book. Like, it could have been, like, a third of the length, probably. If it just, like, got reduced. That's, like, kind of why I liked Hemingway. Because he was, like, no bullshit. Like, let's just go. Let's get to it. Nice and simple. Not gonna be all flowery and fuck. But that's just me. That's sort of like my style. That's I think why I kind of got drawn more to screenwriting, because it's a lot more. Screenwriting is a lot more bare bones. Script economy, like only put in there what you need. No, like you can do a little bit, but like not a lot. A little bit's fun, but all right, we're probably gonna wrap up soon. If any of you guys have any last questions, let me know, and then we'll wrap up. But thank you so much for coming out, for listening, for subscribing to the channel, for chilling. Wow, it's weird to think that when I got up to like 10,000 and 15,000, when I was up to 18,000, we were like, oh, we're gonna do the 20,000. It's gonna be cool. And then like the male body video took off, and all of a sudden I was up to like 30, and it's like, okay, and then it was like, oh shit, and then now we're on 50, and it's like, fuck. It's a little bit surreal. It hasn't really sunk in yet. It's weird because it's like, it's weird. It's funny because a lot of people have been saying this, or even in Discord, they're like, dude, why do you respond to people in the comments? And they're like, what do you mean? And they're like, no one does that. And it's funny because like, and it's funny because a lot of people are like, even recently I said this where, oh, well, I'm a smaller creator, so like, you should do that to do that. And they're like, and so, I think someone was like, what do you, like, you're up to like 40,000 subs, dude. And I'm like, oh yeah. I think it's also kind of skewed because a lot of the other creators I watch like are like much higher, like in the hundreds of thousands. Or even like a couple in the millions, like Contra, like Lindsay Ellis, like a lot of the bread tubers or like other people I watch, like they have like very high sub counts. I don't have many niche smaller channels that I watch. I try to like seek them out because I like that, or just like seeking out more like channels that don't have as big followings. But it's weird because people are like, yeah, I mean, you not only do like YouTubers usually never like respond to people or like comments, but like especially not um with your following count. And I'm like, oh, I'm still a small channel. And then I think someone was like, yeah, the other day they were like, no, not really. Oh, thank you, Asin. You remembered my name, Chris. Thank you. But yeah, thank you so much, all. So yeah, I actually have 3 videos in my head right now. I need to do another episode of the craft of. I have the forced diversity video coming out, but that one's gonna be a little bit far off. It's gonna be same thing on the dating one. Probably gonna be like a big form one. I still have a bunch of I have a bunch of like research saved and even some writing from it, but I'm probably gonna scrap it because I need to restructure it. I don't know how long it's gonna be. I don't know how I'm gonna structure it. Again, it's gonna be one of those things where I'm gonna finish the script and then I'm gonna spend the next like month just like going through with a fine tooth comb, making sure I don't like say anything fucking stupid or that actually makes sense, and isn't like pushing any like that isn't gonna make like some like racist idiot be like, oh yeah, you understand me, man. It's like, no, fuck off. But yeah, and again, it's like I think like someone had mentioned before, they had asked like part of the reason I do like to interact with you guys, and again, I'll try to do as much as possible. I know at some point, if the channel continues to grow, it's gonna be very difficult to. On every like comment, I try to do it as much as possible, but like I don't ever want to get to that point where like you kind of get too disconnected from your audience, where like you feel like good, like you feel like you're a god above it all. Like I don't know, I don't want that. That's weird to me, because that's when I kind of feel like you stop like. See, like right now with you guys as the audience, I kind of trust you in the sense of like, if I like make a video and you guys and I read the comments, I'm like, I know that you like a lot of you guys, the viewers are like, oh, okay, I can trust your judgment, in the sense of, oh, okay, I want to like, I'm actually gonna take it to heart. I feel like the danger with a lot of like big YouTubers is they kind of start to lose that, where it just becomes so much that they kind of stop reading chat or like the comments, and it kind of results in them sometimes losing like kind of like I said earlier with like red pill dudes, maybe they do have good intentions, but they're just so they don't really realize the sort of community they're sort of like harboring, or like sort of if they're trying to like get rid of toxicity, are they actually pushing it by even accidentally. And I feel like the more you lose touch with your audience, the easier that is to happen. Someone asked earlier, like if I get like a comment on like one of my jokes and it's like a little racist or a little bit like risque, I'll try to like reach out to that person and be like, yeah, that's not what I meant though, right? Yeah, you know that, right? And just like to make sure like, yeah, we're good, right? But I feel like I'm very proud of you guys, especially in the sense that even you guys, I feel like I've seen cases where people have like said like risque stuff or like sort of like taken things wrong, and I've seen some of you guys kind of go in there and be like, hey, I don't really think that's what we're talking about. I don't really think we agree with that. I'm really proud that we're all sort of like on that same page of. I feel like as a content creator, I think, and some people will say this. I don't think a content creator is responsible for like the actions of their audience. I think that they are responsible to some extent of the community they're harboring. That if you sort of lose track of that and kind of let it run wild, if like eventually like my videos like just resulted in like just like a bunch of like the forced diversity, if like all of a sudden I started to get a huge influx of like people who were like, yeah man, get rid of the blacks, um I would be like, oh, okay, maybe that was a misstep, maybe I need to like reevaluate, maybe I need to um change this up next time and be more careful. Whereas I think other content creators would be like, well, it's not my fault how they interpret my work. It's like, yeah, but it seems like, and again, this is every time I point this out about like, say, a red pill dude, Alexander Grace, or uh, or like Rollo Tomasi, or like entrepreneurs in cars, like all these red pill dummies, and like you see their content sections, and they're just like filled with toxicity. And the big argument is like, well, it's not like they're saying that's how it's being interpreted. And it's like, well, why is that being interpreted? Why is it that you're attracting this? And again, it's not just like a comment. It's not just like like one comment out of like a random one. It's usually it's usually like like these top rated comments with like 2,000 likes. It's like, I don't like, this isn't like a an extreme view in this community. And again, maybe you didn't mean to do that. Maybe that's not what you meant. But but if you're not going to make an effort to try to quell it, I don't have any respect for that. I think that's like really just. But I just don't have respect for it. It's like I feel it's just very weak. It's just very like it almost kind of feels like they're just trying to like they kind of they're not doing it on principle. They know that it's like what they're doing, but they don't want to put in the effort of like it maybe admitting that maybe they did something wrong, or maybe they made a mistake. My Black Panther video that I made way back, my third video, looking back on it, I'm actually going to address it in the forced diversity video, where that was a video where I remember like, oh, I really didn't articulate some of these views well, and what I was trying to say, or what I thought the actual problem was in like the studio system, and when it comes to diversity and pushing for diversity and film criticism, it wasn't articulated well, and that kind of came across in the comments. Connor, the comments can create their own negative feedback loop, though. At some point. At some point, but I don't think, especially, but that's again, especially as like a smaller creator, I think you have to be almost even like you have to be super vigilant when you're like a smaller creator, because the people coming in are always gonna be sort of the ones who define the community, right? If someone comes into a community with like 10,000 subscribers, that community is already, even if it grows eventually to 100,000, it's going to eventually build up and retain that tone, So I think, especially as a smaller creator, you have to be careful and even be more vigilant of sort of trying to control your audience, or trying to control the flow and the tone while you can. Eventually, if you get out to like 200,000 subscribers, you probably aren't going to be able to. If you've already lost control of like the tone of your audience, you might be stuck in a situation where, fuck, I have a like incredibly successful $200,000 subscriber YouTube channel, and it's filled with people I fucking hate, and I'm making content for people that I do not agree with. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, exactly, Asin. That's the thing. It's like I'm always misunderstood. It's like, and that's not to say that I think that actually there are like are there people who are probably like purposefully misunderstanding you to try to like attack you? Of course. But if I'm giving you like a good faith read, and I'm like, and I always try to do that with people, like even people like Jordan Peterson, or even people with Alexander Grace. A lot of people when I criticize him thought I was just going off his thumbnails, or I was misrepresenting him, or I wasn't familiar with his videos. I very much am. And even when I give that good faith read, there's still a lot. You're not really. Jordan Peterson has a huge problem with this, where like again, he's sort of a complicated case. I feel I have a lot of feelings about Jordan Peterson, but the issue is that eventually, when it gets to the point where, and like there are times in some interviews where he's fantastic and he's articulate and he like perfectly addresses what exactly he's talking about. And I'm like, and then and then there's some people who still are like, oh, you mean this? It's like, no, it's like, yeah, in this case, he's being very clear in what he's talking about. But in others, sometimes like he's so vague about certain topics that I'm kind of like, okay, are you just being vague because you misspoke? Are you being vague because you actually want to kind of like say something but you don't really want to say it? What was it in the dating video with Elliot Hulse? Should women have the right to vote? Depends on who you ask. Like that's not the right answer. That is not we know what answer that is. And it's so funny because I have a feeling that like I'm sure like someone like commented on it and it was like, Elliot, so you don't think women should have the right to vote? And he's like, didn't say that. He misunderstood me. I didn't say that. It's like, what what else did you mean by saying it depends on who you ask and then you passed on the question? Why wouldn't you just lie? Shit. Like, I don't know. I shouldn't like, like I'm not like saying like, but if you have a view that that's fucking stupid, that women shouldn't have the right to vote, at least like if you're not even like, if you don't think you're as much of a coward to just lie about it on live television, at least be man enough, or I shouldn't say man enough, but at least have the balls to just like own it. Like if that's your opinion, like, oh, it's a stupid fucking opinion, Elliot. But at least like own it, alpha male. You can't even answer the question. Like, what do you like? I'm gonna pass on it. Like we know what that means. We know what like you didn't like. It's like I shouldn't say that because it's like, but it's very similar to like kind of like the abstract idea of like pleading the fifth. Do you have respect for women? I don't really feel comfortable answering. Like why? Like in some cases of like, again, I'm not like comparing it to the Fifth Amendment, like in an actual court of law. I understand there's different circumstances. And maybe there are like some circumstances where like I can see that like I don't really feel like answering. But in most cases, if someone says like, hey, do you think that like, slavery was wrong? And I'm like, I'm gonna pass on that. I need to think about it a little bit, collect my thoughts. And it's just okay. And then someone calls you on it, like that's kind of weird that you didn't. It's kind of weird that you passed on it, right? That you didn't answer it. And he's like, well, I didn't say I didn't like it. That's like, yeah, I know you didn't. I know. But like you kind of did. Like everyone's gonna read it like that. But that's yeah. Yeah, so I think especially if any of you out there who want to start, if anyone out there who do want to start a channel, what I would suggest, and I think that what I've tell Undead Chronic to debate you, dude. The dude didn't even watch the video. He complained about like he didn't understand sexual selection before watching the video, and I'm like, hey, maybe you should just watch the video. Maybe you should just watch the video and then make it run after. He's like, okay, I will, yeah. And then like and then I went to his channel and I saw that he makes literally just cancer content of just like anti-feminine. Again, I actually have a lot of critiques against feminism, but like, don't just like shit on it and then just like leave it be and then just like make money off all the dudes who are just like super pissed off at just like women in general. It's like, it's so transparent. And then these guys will always, they'll always like, back up on like, oh, well, I'm just critiquing the feminine. It's like, yeah, you can critique it, but if you're not but if all your channel just like if all of your channel just like consists of you just like pointing out like say flaws, or another example of like with Alexander Grace or Rollo Tomasi or like entrepreneurs and cards, all these Red Pill dudes, oh, we're just pointing out like the effects that society has effects on women. It's like, Yeah, but you're not doing it from an empathetic point of view like you are with men. Like, I think, like, I saw an Entrepreneurs with Cars video where he just, like, rags on single mothers for, like, 30 minutes. What are you doing? Like, you're a grown man. What is wrong with you? Well, I know what's wrong with him. Well, there's nothing wrong with him. He knows what he's doing. He's playing to his base, and he's making a shit ton of money for it. So, I mean, good for him financially, but I find that utterly disgusting. But for any of you out there who are starting a YouTube channel, I will say, though, to kind of go back to what we've been talking about, if you're starting a channel, be wary of what you're putting out. Be not necessarily be wary, but like be conscious, especially as you're a smaller creator and you have control and you have more control over it. Be conscious of how it's being perceived. The people are the people who are commenting and being attracted to my content. Do they seem to like hold the similar views of mine? Maybe you put one out and like you kind of get some people that's like half and half, and you're like, maybe I need to be careful next time. Maybe I need to sort of like make myself more clear. Not in the sense to just cover your ass, but I think if you're trying to, especially if you're talking about social issues, or you want to like push like empathy and not toxicity, if you're, because if left alone, I think things will drift towards toxicity just because of the nature of the internet. But I think if you are talking about social issues, like really, really sort of contemptuous issues, I think that you have I think you actually do have somewhat of a responsibility to some extent make a valiant effort to maintain the vibe you're trying to go with your audience. To just don't hide behind, oh, well, it's not my fault what they do. It's like, it's not, It's not that it's like your responsibility. It's the fact that you're not trying, I think shows a lack of resolve in what you believe in, right? If I made my dating video and it was all about like pushing away toxic masculinity, and then in the comments I realized that like 90% of the comments were just like toxic bullshit, and someone points it out and I'm like, well, this is how they interpreted my work. It shows that I don't seem to be holding up the principles that I express in the video. But again, if you're doing a smaller channel, do it while you can. Do it while you have a smaller audience that you can control. Not really control, but have a larger influence on the sort of the vibe, the tonality of your audience. Because eventually, if you do blow up, if you do get a large audience, eventually it's going to be out of your hands. It's like you're planting a seed, right? In this case, I think that like with you guys, with the channel, we've worked really hard to like no, we don't want to do this toxic bullshit. That's sort of the reason why I stopped talking about shitting on D&D. Like, we make jokes here and there, but like I remember in my early videos, I did it a lot. And I kind of started to realize that like in the rewrite videos, a lot of comments were just attacking the writers, or like just like fuck D&D. And there's still plenty of that, but I realized as I backed off of doing so, the comments became more, and I celebrated the actors and like what they actually did right. I saw the comments start to get more positive. They started to be like, yeah, this would have been awesome. Oh, this would have been cool. Yeah, I really like this. Like that's what I wanted to see. And that's sort of what I think. And again, it's not like it doesn't mean you're responsible for like the idiots and your like people who like make stupid shit. But if you don't, I just don't personally have respect for people who don't try, who just kind of just let it be and it's like, well, it's not my fault. Because if you say you're against something but then don't work to fight against it, there's no reason for me to believe your convictions. That's basically the whole thing. Okay. I went over like 20 minutes. I was supposed to stop 20 minutes ago. All right, everyone, thank you so much for I can't thank you enough for tuning in, for helping me reach this goal that wasn't even a conceptual goal even a year ago. I was like, fuck. So thank you so much. If you guys are in the Discord, I'll come in like 5 minutes. I have to get some food. But again, thank you so much. So grateful. And hopefully I'll see you at another one of these sometime in the near future. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you guys soon.